Chapter 353. Water is moist, fire is fiery, wood is crooked, metal is smooth, soil is steady. The cycle repeats, and the number is 5. In other words, the style of the heavens, the battle of the king's mandate. This is the wall of Hushur, the contract of the dragon's vein. Swear, receive the mandate of the heavens, and live forever. The king's mandate upholds good. The king's mandate upholds evil. A gentleman's promise. The new moon repeats 4, and its use is 3. Phoenix, Phoenix. Soul return. A magnificent bronze door with a ghost face stood in the center of a strange plain. This was the hub of all worlds, the center of the endless reincarnation plane. There were endless projections of the bronze door. At the center of the public space of every main god team stood a bronze door like this. Behind the bronze door, the sound of gears turning could be heard. In the Great Tang world, the Li clan of Taiyuan, the Song clan of Lingnan, the Turkic king's tent, the Goguryeo palace, the Garuda king Zhu Kan's residence, Do Jinda's camp, and the mirror lake of Linjiang palace burst with resplendent light. The huge bronze door descended from the sky and opened under the summoning ceremony of the 7 masters. Luli didn't feel any discomfort when he opened his eyes. It was as if his vision was blurred, and the surrounding environment changed in an instant. He and his other teammates were all standing on a smooth ice surface. The first thing he saw when he opened his eyes was a smiling young man. Chun Ong sized up the Samsara team in front of him. Not only were Luo Xian and the other 2 summoned, even the newbies in the life support system appeared in the summoning array. "Oh, you are my pervert?" Chun Ong smiled. Luli couldn't pay attention to Chun Ang's words anymore. An emotionless voice sounded in his mind. Massacre mission. Battle of the Wall of Hushur. Mission plane. Twin of Tang. 34% deviation. Mission. Assist the master to win the Battle of the Wall of Hushur as a heroic spirit and become the only survivor. Punishment for failure. Obliteration. Team Windchaser. Team Divine Marshal. Team Red Beauty. Team Universe. Team Heaven's Chosen. Team Truth. And Team Viper. A total of 7 teams have joined the battle, and only one team can emerge victorious. Only when there is only one team left in the battle, or when the master they support obtains the Heshabi, will they be allowed to leave this plane. This dimension is slaughter mode. You can obtain 50% of the inheritance of the enemies you kill. There is no punishment for killing your teammates. Mission item, Heshabi, carrier of Dragon Vein power, automatically obtained by the master who has condensed 100% of Dragon Vein power. Current Dragon Vein power, Great Sway, Yang Guang, 50% Li Clan, Li Shimin, 15% Song Clan, Song Ke, 10% Goryeo, Gowan, 8% Turkic Khaganate, Shibi, 11%, Garuda King, Zhu Kan, 1%, Changel King, Do Jinda, 5%. The masters of each team can use their command incantations to assign tasks to the Samsara teams under them. The Samsara travelers must complete all the tasks except for those that are certain to die. Samsara travelers who have lost their masters must seek refuge with other masters with command incantations within 3 days. They must accept a command incantation as the price, or else they will be killed. 7 teams of death. Lu Li's face was pale as she said in a daze. It's actually 7 teams of death. Divine Marshal, Beauty, Heavenly Prodigy. These are all Samsara teams of 7 stars and above. Why did it become like this? Shouldn't it be a team battle? Why did it become a battle of Heshabi? God, you must be joking. Windchaser's alignment. Yang Guang. Zhang Xiaofeng looked like he had been toyed with. He said numbly, "We're dead this time." Team Divine Marshal is a bunch of martial arts fanatics. Team Beauty is also famous and is known as one of the strongest 7-star teams. We're just Africans who have just risen to 6 stars. How can we fight against those paying players? You must have misunderstood. Luo Xian explained helplessly. We are the strongest team. What are you talking about? Zhang Xiaofeng raised his head. No matter how confident we are just newbies who have only been formed for 6 storylines. How can we fight against those strong teams who have been famous for a long time? Calm down and think about it. We were assigned to the Dragon Bloodline's strongest camp from the start and were targeted by all the other forces. Our opponents in the team battle are also the strongest teams of their respective levels. This is not in line with the God strategy of balance. Not to mention, there are all kinds of overt and covert suppression. There is only one possibility for this situation. What possibility? Zhang Xiaofeng asked anxiously. That is, the side we are in is too strong. So strong that we have lost our balance. So strong that all the teams have to unite to fight against them. So strong that only by placing us in this camp that it is in line with the God strategy of balance. Luo Xian calmly analyzed all this before turning to look at Chenong. Am I right? The powerhouse behind Yang Guang. Hearing Luo Xian's explanation, the rest of the Windchasers' newbies perked up and looked at Chun Ong expectantly. Not bad. You didn't disappoint me. I can tolerate my followers being a bunch of weaklings, but I definitely can't tolerate you guys being a bunch of idiots. Chenong smiled. In fact, your enemies are much more terrifying than you think. Because of the Dragon Bloodline's energy and the protection of luck, the masters of the other forces will grow faster than you can imagine. In other words, the longer you drag this on, the stronger your enemies will be. To me, this doesn't matter. But to you, every minute that passes will increase the danger you face. Furthermore, when the other teams are able to turn the tables on me and influence the entire situation, don't even think about it. My will is not to be blasphemed. In other words, you will face pressure from three sides: me, the enemy, and the world. You have to think carefully. Do you want to give up the right to act independently and obtain my protection? Or do you want to maintain your freedom and face the enemies who will soon unite? Obedience or freedom, I will give you the chance to choose. Tell me now, Chenong asked with a smile. I'm different from the other masters. I don't need the command incantation to force you. Lu Li and her teammates looked at each other before lowering their heads. We will follow your orders, master. That's good. Let's set off now, Chenong said calmly. I need the participants in this war to be aware of their situation. The corners of Chun Ang's mouth curled into a sneer. Moreover, 7 participants are a little too many. We have to make the move. Only then can this war be considered evenly matched. In the Golden City Palace of Lejiang City, a maniacal laughter rang out. Ha ha! What a familiar smell. Is this war? The joy of a man's life is nothing more than killing lives, suppressing the rebels, defeating the enemy, uprooting them, seizing everything they have, forcing their relatives to cry, and raping their wives and daughters. A short man in leather armor stood on Do Jianda's throne and laughed. An awe-inspiring aura spread out with him as the center. It made people vaguely hear the galloping of the cavalry, the crying of the civilians, and the laughter of the barbarians in the bloody battlefield. I recommend a book. Bring a Jurassic with you. The author is the author who wrote The Legend of the Cretaceous Deinosuchus. I read it for the whole afternoon today. It's very interesting. There's a direct train on the page. You can go and have a look if you're bored. Chapter 354. A short man dressed in leather armor and traditional clothes of the grassland people stood in Do Jianda's newly renovated Jincheng Palace. When he heard the announcement of the Lord God, his expression became very ugly. A samsara traveler dressed as a shaman next to him asked uneasily, Errol Hawk, this mission seems to be for us to assist this southerner. Should we? Shut up. Dai Sendari. The short man sneered. You're an insult to your name. You actually want to submit to the weak southerners? You're not fit to be a descendant of the Golden Family. Genghis Khan taught us that the greatest joy in a man's life is to kill, subdue the rebels, defeat the enemy, eradicate them, take everything they have, force their relatives to cry, and rape their wives and daughters. The Southerners are only our slaves. They are not worth our lives. But in this 7-man team battle, other than weaklings like the Windchasers, the other teams like the Divine Martial Team and the Beauty Team are stronger than us. Moreover, there's no way we can compromise. If we give up the advantage that the Lord God gave us, the battle will be very difficult. The shaman at the side still wanted to persuade him, but he was immediately stopped by the short-hair Riley and Ku. Idiot. As the Mongolian geniuses, we are not trusted by the Southerners. Even if we obey them, do you think the forces that the chief god assigned to us will trust us? It would be better to seize, control, and replace his forces and control this power. There are 100,000 Southerners here. If we can contact the tribes in the grasslands and sell the Southerners to them, we can immediately gain the support of hundreds of small tribes. At that time, with the forces we control, do we have to worry about not being able to bribe the warriors of those tribes? If they want women, we give them the women of the city. If they want gold and slaves, we let them kill and plunder. Just like what Genghis Khan did, robbing the wives, daughters, and wealth of the Southerners, letting the warriors indulge themselves in the flames of war. Aren't such warriors and tribes more trustworthy than the weak Southerners? The shaman still wanted to dissuade them. But we can be like Genghis Khan, confuse and deceive them. When the time is right, we can take back everything we want. If we fall out with them now, we won't be able to use their power. Dai Sendari, Team Shinwu and Team Beauty are both from the south. Although they're stronger than us, they have a weakness, and that is that they're always scheming against each other. The two strongest teams will definitely treat each other as their greatest enemy. Under such circumstances, we should not hesitate to draw two sides, the Southerners and the other races. We should unite with the weaker teams to deal with the Southerners who have the greatest advantage, Team Red Beauty, Team Divine Marshal, and the weakest Team Windchaser. At the same time, we should incite them to fight amongst themselves. Our Team Chosen, the Korean Team Universe, the Turkish Team Truth, and the Mercenary Viper team will have to work together to eliminate those Southerners. Eril and Ku analyzed the situation for him. In this situation, we have to show our hatred towards the Southerners. We have to use the cruelest methods to torture the Southerners and, at the same time, reach a consensus. This is a kind of psychological warfare, but when we kill a common enemy, we will be able to get closer to each other. How do we get the Koreans and Turks to form an alliance with us, even if it's a temporary and fragile alliance? Only blood and wine, the blood and wine of the Southerners, could be drunk together. You are still far from the Gold family's military strategy and strategy. Rilhe and Ku stood up and walked toward the palace gate. Dojinda was locked in a wooden cage and hung at the gate. The corpses of his personal guards were piled up messily on the square in front of the palace gate, forming a huge pit. A huge and twisted worm with a big belly was curled up inside the pit, devouring the corpses. The death worm is still incomparable to the alien. Although it lays eggs quickly, the larvae and adults are too weak. They can only cause some trouble for the weakest soldiers. However, the Southerners who can help us guard this city are enough to deal with the normal civilians. If this was the desert, these worms would be very useful. But this is the land of the Southerners, not the grasslands or the vast ocean. Is a command incantation still not able to be transferred? Eril and Ku frowned. It can't be transferred. Although we managed to control him first, the restrictions of the God King are still very strict. If we take the initiative to harm him, we might give him the chance to use the command incantation. Eril and Ku sneered. So what if we give him the chance? He's just a storyline character, a low-level existence. What can he understand? If it wasn't for the information that the God King gave him, he probably wouldn't even know how to use the command incantation, just as the Chosen Ones were methodically implementing their plan. Chun Ang's gaze was locked on this place from dozens of miles away. Looking at the bloodstains and tragic state of Do Jinda's palace, his gaze gradually turned cold. Although he didn't expect the samsara travelers of the foreign races to display an equal and loving attitude, this kind of disdain and unscrupulous behavior still made him very angry. The Chosen One's actions and the God King's encouragement showed that they didn't reject them. Even with Chun Ang's indifference and heartlessness, he would still be angry, not to mention that Will of China was living in symbiosis with Chun Ang's consciousness. At this moment, Chun Ang's spirit was firmly locked on the position of the Chosen Ones. Will of China, who had always been very quiet, had a rare high degree of overlap with his consciousness. Both of them had sentenced the God King's space to death. As for the chosen ones, they were just a fly that was killed in passing. Although Lu Li, who was next to Chenong, was a little slower, she immediately discovered the traces of the chosen ones. The unmanned ornithopter disguised as a fly swept over the Jincheng Palace camp. The mother of worms and the corpse flashed across the screen, causing the Wind Chaser squad to be immediately vigilant. Death worm? It should be the chosen ones. Damn it, they killed so many people. Zhang Xiaofeng said angrily. The chosen ones is a 7-star squad. Their captain, All Hawk, is a big butcher who wholeheartedly imitates Temujin. He can be regarded as a leader among the Mongolian reincarnators. His enhancement should be Scion's bloodline, and he may have practiced the military's battle formation martial arts. According to the intelligence, he is at the peak of 7-star, but according to my estimation, he should have broken through to 8-star. Wasn't he chased by many reincarnators in China who thought of the Han Dynasty and had nowhere to go? So he had to run to South Asia and rely on the protection of European and American ghosts to survive? Why did he dare to return to the world of the plot of China? Zhang Zhongheng wondered. Luo Xian sneered and said, "It's another dog released by our own people. China is so big. There are all kinds of people. Aren't there 2 members from the Huaxia region in their team?" Just as the goshawks swooped down again, Arel and Kus suddenly raised their heads. Their sharp gazes seemed to have traveled through time and space and nailed Zhang Xiaofeng through the screen. Zhang Xiaofeng was stunned by their viper-like gazes. With a biting, cold, murderous look, Zhang Xiaofeng's heart was under great pressure, making him almost unable to breathe. As All Hawk's eyes narrowed, Zhang Xiaofeng's face flushed with blood. Luo Xian, who was next to him, was just about to close the notebook when he saw All Hawk's right hand grabbing at thin air. And Ki Arrow seemed to appear out of thin air and shot out with his spiritual will. The Goshawk spacecraft, which was several kilometers away, exploded in the air. Not good. Just as Lu Li was about to make a move, she saw a flash on the screen. Zhang Xiaofeng was heavily leaning on the chair, his spirit extremely exhausted. It seems that All Hawk, in addition to strengthening the Scion's key affinity system, must have also practiced a very advanced demonic martial art. He has stepped into 8-star. As soon as this news came out, everyone in the Wind Chaser squad on the airship fell into silence. Several newcomers secretly looked at Chun-Ong, who was standing at the bow of the airship. They only saw that ever since Chun-Ong had arrived nearby, he had been looking at the mountains and rivers below with an expressionless face. What the hell is he? The newcomers were just about to say something, but Lu Li's stern eyes forced them to shut up. In the newcomers' hearts, Chun-Ong, who had never directly fought before, did not seem to be as dangerous as the terrifying barbarian on the screen. He even made them feel insecure. But now, the cold sweat on Lu Li's back was even worse than when he had just faced All Hawk's mental attack. He wished he could pull out a knife and place it on the newcomers' necks to shut their mouths. Chapter 355. The atmosphere was indeed a little strange. No one from the Wind Chasers spoke a word. Following that, a middle-aged scholar whom Luo Xian was very familiar with pushed open the hatch and walked to Chenang's side. Beside him was a mysterious woman wrapped in black muslin. Her exquisite figure made the rookies who lacked self-control involuntarily gulp a mouthful of saliva. At this moment, Do Jinda's camp was already visible on the horizon. Lu Li and the other veterans sensibly stood up. They heard Chun-Ong ask calmly, "Are you ready?" "Yes." Lu Li hurriedly nodded. He could faintly see some commotion on the ground from the corner of his eye. The airship was thousands of meters in the sky. With the technological level of the Great Tang, it was impossible to damage an airship at such a height. However, Samsara travelers had strange and ever-changing methods. A mere high altitude was no restriction to them. In fact, if not for Chun-Ang's insistence, Lu Li would definitely not attack from such a high altitude. This meant cutting off their path of retreat, and it also meant that there was no way out. They would be trapped, no matter how one looked at it. This was a great taboo for Samsara travelers. Lu Li's back tensed up. He knew that as long as the chosen team wasn't a bunch of idiots, there was no way they wouldn't have noticed the airship. Chinong suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky in front of him. Luli looked over nervously and saw several ballistic missiles with long tails of flames flying out of the forest below at supersonic speeds exceeding Mach 5. With Lu Li's superb eyesight, she could even clearly see the color of the tail flames of these anti-air missiles. For advanced modern weapons, flying thousands of meters in the sky was nothing more than a blink of an eye. Chun Ong extended his hand and pulled out a steel longsword from Huang Chang's waist. The longsword was sharp and tough. It was 3 feet and 1 inch long, and its material structure was the most ordinary crystalline steel. In the Great Tang, it was naturally a top-notch divine weapon. However, even after being appraised by the Lord, it was only an ordinary 1-star bronze longsword. On the Bluestone Square in front of the gate of Golden City, Oriel Heck watched Chun Ong flying off the airship with a sneer. He then turned around and said to Descendari with a smile, "How dare such a puny ant like wind chasers provoke us? How dare you fly over us by airship? How stupid you are! There's no need to look anymore. Although it's just a miniature nuclear warhead, weaklings like the wind chasers won't be able to survive it." After saying that, Ariel and Ku prepared to leave. When the missiles arrived at their prefabricated killing point, which was about 100 meters below the airship, without any warning, the 4 warheads exploded at the same time, and a dazzling sun appeared in the airship's position. The chain reaction reached a terrifying core temperature of 100 million degrees. In theory, it could destroy any life at the core. Then, the high temperature at the center of the nuclear explosion would directly act on the gas. And with the help of the expansion at the moment of the explosion, its own energy would be transmitted out. Radiation, high temperature, shock waves, and electromagnetic storms would form an impact force that would sweep through the entire space within the killing circle, vaporizing all man-made materials and traces of life in the vicinity. Although it was just a miniature nuclear warhead, it only reduced the killing area, not its individual power. Only powerhouses like Ariel and Ku would stare directly at the light radiation after the nuclear warhead's explosion. Even so, he could only prevent his eyes from getting hurt. He couldn't see through the disaster that was like the wrath of heaven. Descendari couldn't help but narrow his eyes when he saw the suns that suddenly appeared in the sky. The detonation of the nuclear warheads in the sky would undoubtedly create a lot of radioactive dust. For powerhouses like them, it naturally didn't matter. However, for the civilians living here, it was definitely a nightmare. It was a pity for the nearby population that was destined to be killed. Descendari suddenly felt that something was wrong at the center of the nuclear explosion. Descendari observed the changes in the energy of the nuclear explosion with his naked eyes using the Vairocana Buddhism. He suddenly saw a huge hand that covered the sky and the sun grabbing the suns formed by the 4 nuclear warheads in the spectrum of the energy radiation. The huge hand, that was several hundred meters wide, gathered the energy released by the nuclear explosion. It was as if it was grabbing the 4 suns, and it was slamming them hard onto the ground. "Get out of the way!" Descendari shouted at the top of his lungs. He exerted all his chakra, and a mass of Buddha's light escaped from the crown chakra. It was like a pagoda falling down, protecting himself and Ariel and Ku. At the same time, he desperately crushed the Garrigon in his hand. A mass of thick and turbid Buddha's light set up countless pagodas in front of him, leading to the huge hand in the sky. The huge hand in the air pressed on the golden castle. The unparalleled energy that erupted from the 4 nuclear warheads filled every inch of space in the huge hand, gradually condensing the huge hand. This huge energy was confined in a limited space, but its power increased exponentially. The huge chain reaction energy was completely used to drive the next level of chain reaction. The abundant yuan qi in the air was ignited in an instant. When the Golden Castle, where more than a dozen members of the chosen team were located, came into direct contact with this destructive force, most of them couldn't react in time and melted in this endless light. It was as if a sun had fallen to the ground, burning with a blazing white flame. Although it only burned for dozens of seconds, it had already erased the entire Golden Castle from the ground, leaving only a clear palm print in place. The ground was in a semi-melted state, and a few barely recognizable human-shaped things were trapped in the lava. They were so black that it was impossible to tell the material they were made of. Luli looked at the prompt in front of her. The Wind Chasers killed a member of the chosen team, rewarded with a 5-star bronze card and 5,000 points. Such messages were crazily flooding the screen, and in an instant, there were more than a dozen of them. Almost half of the chosen team was in it. Suddenly, they felt very confused. The rash newcomer opened his mouth wide, and he didn't even notice that his saliva was dripping out. He just trembled and said, This can't be real. How is this possible? They could see everything clearly from above. The huge light radiation from the nuclear bomb explosion had already spread in front of them, but they couldn't take a step forward. They were held in the hands of the demon-like man in front of them. It was as if he had grabbed the sun and smashed it down, leaving a palm print on the ground. Thinking of what he had said before, the newcomer who was dressed like a white-collared worker suddenly felt his legs tremble, and he couldn't control himself. This isn't a battle, and it can't even be called a crushing. This is a massacre, Zhang Xiaofeng exclaimed. The Buddha's first appearance of Buddha's palm? Luo Xin shook his head and denied it. Using a nuclear bomb to ignite light. This Buddha's palm is too destructive. This is a power that uses violence to destroy everything. It's better to call it the nuclear melting palm's world peace. Chen Eng's figure slowly descended. With the huge sun in front of him, no one saw how he landed on the ground. Standing on the ground that was flowing with lava and radiation, Chen Eng's expression was calm. He took a few steps forward and came before a charred human-shaped object. The human-shaped object, whose skin was stuck to the metal combat suit, raised its head with great difficulty. It revealed a face that was almost like a bloody skeleton, and it had no skin. Dazendari, right? I didn't expect that a nuclear furnace would be easier to burn out Sariras. Chen Ong glanced at his agate body. Although it's a whole one, other people's golden bodies are burned out in pieces, but you've been burned into a whole piece. It's worth studying. The golden body has been burned into agate, but it's still alive. It's very tenacious. It's also the first time I've seen a living Sariras. It's of great research value. I'll spare your life, Chen Ong said with a smile. Demon, Dazendari uttered a vague Mongolian word from his throat. He stared at Chen Ong with two eyes that were almost burned into bloody holes and roared, Demon, be scientific. Don't be superstitious. Chen Ong stood up in front of him. It's just a technology that can only throw a warhead out. It's better not to learn from others and play with nuclear weapons. What do you say when it comes to space technology? Looking at Oral Hawk, who was crawling out of the magma in the distance, one had to admit that an 8-star powerhouse was indeed an 8-star powerhouse. He was wrapped in magma and had been hit by the impact of a dozen nuclear bombs. If it were anyone else, they would have been killed hundreds of times. However, his vitality was still strong, and his spirit was even surging because of the injury. Oral Hawk's bloodshot eyes were filled with violence as he stared at Chen Ong. His body that was wrapped in magma suddenly stood upright, and the aura in his charred body seemed to be rising endlessly like a rocket. The chi that was spewing out filled every inch of space in the ruins of the Golden City Palace. It even shot up into the sky. From where the airship was, one could also feel the majestic pressure of the sea around Oral Hawk. It was as if there was a tangible chi filling this space. It was as if Oral Hawk's every move had the power to shake the entire world. To be continued. Chapter 356. Only a few breaths of time had passed since Oral and Kud dragged his heavily injured body to the seance, Ki suppressing the space. Most of the members of the Wind Chaser squad couldn't even react before their knees softened and they almost knelt on the ground. It was as if a substantial aura was heavily pressing down on them, making it difficult for them to even breathe. The newcomers were even more unbearable and were already lying on the ground. Zhang Xiaofeng struggled to resist the pressure and said while holding his breath, "That guy's strengthened scion bloodline is getting stronger and stronger. The more he is injured, the stronger his fighting will and strength will become. We are in big trouble this time." He still wanted to say something, but was stopped by Lu Li, who signaled them to look back at the battlefield with her eyes. They saw Chang'an walk around Descendari's crippled body and walk towards Oral and Ku step by step. The Scion's huge aura blocked in front of him like a wisp of remnant ash. At this time, Oral and Ku howled like a wounded lone wolf. He used his claws to tear apart the magma-stained skin and flesh on his body and howled towards Chang'an. Like a wild wolf, Oral and Ku crazily rushed over. His claws were condensed with powerful ki, which was enough to tear apart any expert's flesh and blood. He grabbed towards Chang'an's throat, his 5 fingers tightly hooked as if he was going to pull out his throat. The ki condensed on his nails was sharp and swift, filled with a murderous aura. White tiger biting corpse, Luli said in shock. Oral and Ku is training in the burial scripture. Oral and Ku's howl was like that of a wolf or a tiger, full of ferocity and tyranny. He used all his murderous aura and crazily wanted to tear apart Chang'an's throat, as if he had lost all reason. After Lu Li's reminder, the other veterans of the Wind Chaser squad could faintly see that Oral and Ku's pounce, claw, and tear apart had a tiger-like aura that could not be dispersed. Go to hell! Go to hell! Oral and Ku crazily roared like a lone wolf in a desperate situation. He didn't distinguish between friend and foe, and didn't care about his own safety. He only wanted to tear off a piece of flesh from Chang'an's body. This kind of craziness of mutual destruction allowed him to display his combat strength several times over. Even experts who were a level higher than him would be suppressed by him due to the taboo of getting injured. His angry roar was like thunder, capable of robbing the courage of a coward. Amidst the distorted rays of light from the hot lava, Chang'an could be seen stabbing his sword into the ground and clenching his fists. Amidst the crazed roars of Oral and Ku, he took a step forward and threw a punch. Oral and Ku's tiger claws were wrapped in a fierce aura. They met the punch head-on and broke it in half. The broken forearms pierced through Airyle and Ku's chests, piercing right through their chests. Oral and Ku took a direct hit to the face, and half of their heads caved in. The skin and flesh on his face were crushed, and his body was sent flying back into the magma. Half of his head was smashed, and his body could only twitch on the ground. White brain matter flowed into the magma, sizzling, and a barbecued aroma wafted out. Smelling this smell, Luo Xian's face turned deathly pale. She bent over and almost vomited under the airship. I don't want to eat brains anymore, Zhang Xiaofeng mumbled. Luo Xian, who was beside him, heard this, and her originally straightened back bent again. I have a few words to entrust to you, to those foreign visitors who are still alive. Tong Guan took out a handkerchief and handed it to Chang'an to wipe his hands. At the same time, he calmly said to everyone on the ruins, "You have all seen what happened today. I have no goodwill towards you. If you don't want to die, then unite and kill me. At the very least, you have to preserve your lives, right? You should all know that hiding is useless. Either you wait for me to come knocking on your door, like today, and kill you like dogs, or, when the time comes, you will be eliminated. So, no matter what hatred, disputes, national righteousness, or schemes, unite." Chang'an smiled and said, "First live." Such indifferent and ruthless content. Although Chang'an's face was very calm, even with a graceful smile, as if everything he had just done was as natural and poetic as plucking flowers and breaking willows. But in the eyes of all the reincarnators, living, dead, and half-dead, there was a trace of indescribable ruthlessness. Chang'an's gaze seemed to be interrogative, but also seemed to be encouraging as he looked at those who were still alive in the ruins. Everyone looked at Riley and Ku, who were still struggling on the brink of death. They watched as Riley and Ku stood up once again. Even though half of his head was deflated, the chi on his body was still the same, and it was even more ferocious and powerful. Scions are worthy of being one of the most expensive bloodline enhancements in the space. Zhang Zhongheng sighed. They are really a fighting race. Their vitality is unexpectedly strong to such an extent. The closer a scion is to death, the stronger they are. Luo Xian's lips slightly moved, but he still opened his mouth and said, now that his life is hanging by a thread, I am afraid that his battle strength has already broken through 9 stars and touched the gate of God, the terrifying realm of immortal will. Don't look at his dying appearance. As long as the battle intent in his heart does not disappear, he will not die even if he is beaten in his cells. Of course, as long as the enemy disappears, he will immediately die. So the best situation is to quickly leave and avoid fighting. He will die by himself, Lu Li said with a trembling voice. But a strong storyline will never run away from a battle. Luo Xian smiled bitterly. Perhaps this is why we reincarnators are always inferior to the strong storyline in martial arts. This is bad. Orile and Kus slowly straightened their heads, raising their heads and looking straight at Chenong. Even though they had forcibly broken several cervical vertebrae, Orile and Kus still clenched their teeth, proudly and slowly raised their heads, their eyes meeting Chun Ang's in different gaze. Azure Dragon weeps blood, for spirits are ominous. Orile and Ku roared, their hair standing on end. The chi that soared into the sky caused his broken body to swell. His hair roots were covered with a layer of golden light. The veins on his body were like giant dragons, and his muscles swelled like iron. His vitality and chi carried the last of his will to fight, causing his hair to soar into the sky and be dyed golden. Super Scion. The members of the Wind Chasers were alarmed. At this time, even the most ignorant newcomer was shocked speechless, staring at Orile and Ku in the arena with their mouths agape. Looking at him, gathering almost all of his life force and radiating an unparalleled strength. This powerful strength even caused a change in the weather. The remnant clouds in the sky within a radius of tens of miles quickly receded as if they were being blown away by a strong wind. Hundreds of miles, even thousands of miles away, people were shocked, raising their heads to look in this direction. This is 9-star willpower. There's a very powerful key. That is a genius squad. Don't underestimate them. Orile and Ku roared, buried heaven, buried earth, buried heavens. Pooh! An arrow of blood pierced through Orile and Ku's dead head, nailing it to the ground. The fine steel sword pierced through the head, and the corpse knelt on the ground. Chapter 357. The azure sharp sword was stabbed into the ground at an oblique angle, and the smell of sulfur and a faint smell of blood reverberated in the air. From the moment Oral and Ku transformed into a Super Scion and his near-death willpower breaking through to 9 stars, to when Chenong flicked out the steel sword, no one could guess what had happened next. Everything that had happened today had overturned their traditional views. Almost when the Windseeker squad was about to lose all hope, as if an unprecedented showdown was about to take place, Chenong pulled out the sword that was stabbed in front of him. Then, things were quickly resolved at a speed that no one could have imagined. Oral and Ku's corpse knelt in the magma. His badly mutilated face was hideous, and he died with everlasting regret. His corpse swayed slightly before falling face first into the magma. Chenong said calmly, "This matter is over." He glanced at the people who were still lying in the magma, looking at their terrified and trembling eyes. Chenong sighed and said, "Out of responsibility for everyone's lives, I have a rule that I must tell everyone. When I speak, don't interrupt me." He glanced at Oral and Ku's corpse and said indifferently, "Otherwise, I'll have to interrupt you too. In this regard, my methods have always been unpleasant. Take the monk on the ground away." He turned around and said to Tongguan. The airship slowly landed on the ground, and immediately someone came over to carry Dai Sendari away. Lu Li and the others disembarked from the airship, trembling with fear, and stood timidly at the edge of the huge handprint. There was a slight commotion among the lucky survivors of the Windseeker squad. They were terrified, but they didn't know what to do as they looked at Chenong and the commanders of the 2 factories behind him. "Go back." Chenong gestured in a gentle tone. The reincarnators of the Windseeker squad widened their eyes, looking confused and expectant, like a group of harmless rabbits. You can go. Chunong smiled and explained. You can seek refuge with other forces or find a place to hide. Go. I won't keep you for dinner. He gestured for them to leave. Tell those who come from the same place as you that their time is running out. If I don't act now, I'll go looking for them one by one. What happened today will happen again and again. That's not good. It's not good for either of us. I'll lose time, and you'll lose your lives. Also, I wish the world peace. A skinny man who had been hiding in the magma climbed up quickly. He didn't even dare to look at Chunong and disappeared into the ground. After a few breaths, seeing that Chunong didn't do anything, more people escaped. There were 5 or 6 of them. Lu Li and the other samsara travelers of the wind-chasing team watched from the side. Their lips moved as if they wanted to say something. But when he saw Chunong standing at the side with a smile, he immediately lost all his courage. After about 15 minutes, Chunong turned around to look at Lu Li and the others. He said leisurely, "As you are, your value hasn't been recognized by me. There were too many people who escaped just now. My words don't carry much weight. Go after them now and kill as many as you can. Just take it as a test for you. Let me assess your abilities." Yes. Luli didn't even dare to ask a question. She led her teammates and chased after them. Their minds were in a mess. Even when they were chasing, they couldn't concentrate. Luli saw that there would be a big problem. She quickly stopped and ordered, "Zhongheng, use the intelligence network to gather information about the Windseeker squad's escape. Luo Xian, help analyze it. The rest of you, get your spirits in order. If you run over like this, you'll just be sending yourself to death." The veterans gradually came back to their senses. Their eyes were filled with fear and wariness. They couldn't imagine that the Windseeker squad, which was more powerful than the wind-chasing team, would be annihilated just like that. Chunang's nuclear palm technique and the sword strike that killed Oral and made them not dare to have any thoughts of disobeying him. If they had to use a word to describe the impression that Chunang's attack had left on them, it would be brilliant heavenly might. How can there be such power in this world? This is just a 4-star Tang Dynasty world. Can the martial arts of a yellow attribute world be so powerful? Zhang Xiaofeng cried out. That palm, it's the 8-star mysterious world's Buddha's palm. Even the original Buddha's palm isn't that terrifying, right? Do you still think that this world is the Tang Dynasty? Old Hu said with a sad face. This is the world where the He-Shur by war took place. 7 teams fought to the death, dragon vein mysterious. Other than us, the weakest team here is also a 7-star pinnacle team. Divine martial, beauty, and truth are not to be trifled with. Storyline characters. To have such a powerhouse who could single-handedly annihilate the Windseeker squad, it's really... Luckily, we're in Yangguang's camp. Luli didn't say anything. He looked at Zhang Zhongheng and Luo Xian with a serious face. He was investigating the traces of the other members of the Windseeker squad who had escaped, but he couldn't hide the faint fear in his heart. The mission that the Lord God had arranged this time could no longer be called a scam. They were practically buried in the ground. A mutated world with a 4-star base level had produced a 9-star hidden powerhouse. Also, entering the mission and triggering the changes caused by the team battle. Thinking of this, he wanted to curse out loud. What the F***CK is the He-Shur by war. The special effect of the item should only be triggered when entering the moon world. How could it be effective in this world? A mere gold-grade item, the little Holy Grail, could F***King start a 7-team battle. The pockmarks on the Lord God's face aren't pockmarks, they're scams. The enemy has 6 opponents who are far stronger than them in a team battle. On our side, we have a 9-star nation-breaker powerhouse who can single-handedly annihilate a team. He's a terrifying hidden character. Now that he recalled his previous audacity, Luli almost felt lucky. Fortunately, the Windseeker squad had normal values and acted cautiously. In the previous storyline world, they often missed out on some benefits because of this, but now, it could only be said that in the Lord God's space, the winner would never be the one who benefited the most, but the one who could survive. Leader found the whereabouts of one person. Zhang Zhongheng sent good news. They should have escaped separately. Old Hu, Xiaofeng, you and I will go and deal with him first. Zhongheng, Luo Xian, you continue to search for the traces of the others. Inform me if there's any situation. Remember to be cautious. The others listen to Luo Xian's command. Chapter 358. Beside the rolling Yangtze River, under the cover of the Green Mountains, the river flowed to the east. Shushan was covered by a thin mist, and there was a small boat leaning against the river. In this touching world where Bom Mountain and Shu River merged into one, Ning Daoqi stood at the bow of the boat, smiling at the monk who sent him off. Wisdom, why are you worried about me? This trip to Jiang, due to see Yangguang, is a wonderful thing to do from the beginning to the end. To be able to see the sky demon and discuss about the past and present is also a great wish of mine. Wisdom does not make me happy, but I am afraid that I have long forgotten the years and the months and years, and the joy will not return. Zen Master Zhiji put his palms together and mournfully said, "Today the great calamity of the Central Plains is imminent. Yangguang is about to overturn the world." Taoist brother is modest and self-restrained, a person who has deeply mastered the Taoist doctrine of maintaining silence and emptiness. You should be free and unfettered in the world, forgetting everything. Today, he's been implicated by us and has no choice but to return to this great whirlpool of hegemony to face Yangguang. I'm afraid. Ning Daoqi stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Born after the heaven and earth, we know the beginning of the heaven and earth. Dying before the heaven and earth, we know the end of the heaven and earth. There is life, there is death, there is a beginning, there is an end. The effect of life for the dead, and the test of death for the living. This is the way of nature. What is there to be confused about? To be able to meet Yangguang and share his understanding of life and his pursuit of the heavenly Tao, I'm overwhelmed with joy. I've even forgotten the worries of life and death. It's a pity that we have fallen into depravity and have our schemes in our hearts. I'm afraid it's difficult for us to enter the eyes of the sky demon. You've been taught the carefree art of outer heaven. You've been cleansing your genuine chi day and night with a special pearl. Gradually, you've achieved the wonders of being a celestial being. You're far away from disregarding life and death, success and failure, right and wrong, right and wrong. You've transcended all desires, and you've seen everything in the world as one. You don't know whether you're me or not. You're only separated by a piece of paper, so why should you be afraid of the extraterrestrial devil? Master Zhihui untied the ropes that tied the light boat and pushed it open for him, saying, "I'm burdened by the world of mortals. I can't go with Tao Brother. After this farewell, if Tao Brother is happy to come back, we'll chase the wind and moon with Tao Brother and live in seclusion in the forest. If I'm unlucky, I'll go to Jiangdu with the Exan, Tao Exan, and Jia Xiang, and then we'll fight with Yangguang." Ning Daoqi, who was on the boat, shook his head and sighed. "Why bother? Brother Zhihui, I have a word for you before you leave. Those foreign mutants can't be trusted." Wisdom laughed out loud. "Even if they gave us the carefree beyond chapter and swore to fight against Yangguang together, I know that they have evil intentions. They're like eagles watching wolves and eagles watching eagles. I can't entrust them with anything important. Brother, don't worry. As long as we are still around, we won't let them harm the king of Qin." The small boat has already gone far away. Ning Daoqi's silhouette is only as small that in the eyes of the Master of Wisdom. The monkeys on both sides of the Yangtze River are still making noises. The light boat has already disappeared into the thin mist. 100 miles away, a tall young man suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction that Ning Daoqi had gone. A short and fat man next to him sneered and said, "As expected, these plot characters have never trusted us. But that Ning Daoqi is really scary. In just a month, he has mastered the carefree beyond and entered the 8 stars. Plot characters have an advantage over us reincarnators. For a plot character like Ning Daoqi, his willpower has been honed to the peak in the Tang dynasty. He also has decades of accumulation. Suddenly coming into contact with high-level martial arts, it's reasonable that his combat power has skyrocketed under the accumulation. If it wasn't for you lending him the heaven crystal green bead, he wouldn't be able to enter the 8 stars even if you beat him to death. Fatty said flatteringly. I thought it was a simple plot world. I didn't expect the background of the 7 teams to be so deep. Although the Prodigy team is not as strong as us, their team leaders Riley I and Ku are also quite strong. They actually died without being able to fight back. If it's really like what the survivors said, the Wind Chasers have a scary character. Fatty said expectantly, I hope that Ning Daoqi can use his life to find out something for us. Now that all the teams are training their plot characters, it's a good idea. Even if the information is wrong, we can still exchange them like pigs. If the information from the Prodigy team is correct, we can let them take over and create an opportunity for us. The leader of the Shenwu team revealed a playful smile. But will things really go as smoothly as they think? I feel that these plot characters might not be able to be our chess pieces. On the other hand, we are the chess pieces in their eyes. The leader of the Shenwu team suddenly laughed. Now, this is interesting. At the peak of the battle, bathing in the blood of the strong and intoxicated in victory, this is the pursuit of the strong. The path of the weak will not be able to break through the gate of God. If we can bathe the 6 teams in blood and slaughter the heroes of Tang Dynasty, I'm afraid that will be the time when I completely break through the gate of God and advance to the 10 stars. Half a month ago, the survivors of the Prodigy team went to the other teams and brought the news of Chenong to them. It shocked all 5 teams, other than the Shenwu team, who was the strongest and could still control themselves. The other 4 teams were all shocked. Teams like the Truth team and the Universe team were not stronger than the Prodigy team. As for the Red Beauty team and the Viper team, even if they could defeat the Prodigy team, they would definitely suffer heavy losses. However, the Wind Chaser team only needed one powerful fighter to crush the scene. He killed Riley I and Cuckoo like they were little chickens and wiped out the Prodigy team with a single palm. The 4 teams were so scared that they forgot about their differences and discussed working together. Only the strongest team, the Shenwu team, remained aloof. Although the 4 teams and the Shenwu team had a tacit understanding, they did not trust each other at all. It was almost impossible for them to work together. The only way for them to work together was to build up the momentum, exchange information, and push forward some plans together. For example, nurturing the plot characters, the 3 Grandmasters, the evil King Song Ke, and so on. They were planning to use them as cannon fodder. They spared no expense. Many martial arts from the advanced worlds, the few major martial arts schools, such as the Yuan Qi School, the Mind School, the Training System, the Spell School, the Illusion School, the True Spirit School, the God Advent School, the Massacre School, and even the martial arts theories of the Master God Space martial arts experts, as well as a large number of natural treasures, were fed to the plot characters without any regard for money. In addition to the dragon vein fate that flourished in this world, the martial arts flourished. In just a short month, there were peak fighters like Ning Daoqi who had stepped into the 8 stars. Their combat power soared, and as time passed, these powerful fighters would become more and more powerful. Now, with every passing day, the 5 major forces would become more powerful. The major forces, who had almost lost all hope in the face of Yang Guang's demonic might, were like drowning people who had grabbed onto the last straw, desperately digesting these benefits. In this month, the atmosphere in the world was strange. On the surface, it was very calm. In fact, as the Sui army pacified the 4 sides, the world regained a bit of peace and tranquility. But in the dark, the wind and clouds were surging, and the undercurrents were surging. Chapter 359. Chenong stood on the rocky beach beside the Yangtze River. The edge of the reef had been eroded by the river water until it was as sharp as a blade. 2-0. It accumulated under his feet and penetrated into the river like the teeth of a dog, tearing out a snowflake-like wave. The captain of the Universe team, Jin Zhonghuan, stood opposite Chenong with a solemn expression. The shadow of the river water slapped under Jin Zhonghuan's feet, but it passed through his body and slowly headed east. This was actually a 3-dimensional projection. He was clearly in Goryeo, but the Universe team had clearly restored every detail of Chun Eng's body from thousands of miles away and projected it here. This is the mysterious expert of the wind chasers? Jin Zhonghuan asked in a stern voice. Yes, I had the coward who was lucky enough to escape compare with him. It is indeed him. Standing outside the projection, Pu Xuanxi, who was looking at him with a smile, said, but Appa seems to be thinking too much. My demonic plans have already infected him, but he didn't even notice it. It doesn't seem to be the performance of a 9-star expert. Could it be that those Mongolians are too useless, so? Pu Xuanxi, keep your cleverness to yourself. I have met this person before during a mission. He is not the kind of person who is overly famous. The bloodline of the Scion race has been strengthened in his hands, and he can even fight with experts who are higher than his star level. An expert who can kill him is not someone that your stupid brain can predict. Jin Zhonghuan asked coldly, how much longer before Ning Daoqi arrives here? The Shenwu team said that they will arrive in half a day. The ghoul unit is also in position. Appa, should we? Pu Xuanxi enlarged the scale of the projection. A group of hideous humanoid monsters dozens of miles away from Chunong appeared on the projection. They were floating under the abdomen of a monster that looked like a ray, hanging upside down like bats. These monsters, which Pu Xuanxi called ghouls, had curled up deformed bodies, and their skin was as pale as a corpse. They seemed to be very afraid of sunlight. Occasionally, one of them would be pushed to the edge by its companions and come into contact with a thin ray of sunlight. It was as if it had been splashed with sulfuric acid, and it let out an ear-piercing scream. These monsters were not a specialty of any storyline world. Instead, they were created by the Cosmic Team using the stone demon mask from the world of JoJo's Amazing Adventures, which could create vampires. In this world, they were created using Goryo's martial arts experts as their bodies. After being injected with the vampire virus in the world of Night Legend and modified by the Umbrella Corporation's biochemical technology in the world of Resident Evil, they retained their martial arts experience and removed human emotions. Even though these biological weapons only had a lifespan of 24 hours due to the effects of the genetic disease caused by the conflict of genetic redundancies, they still possessed extremely terrifying destructive power and were the trump cards of the Universe team. Among these ghouls, there were also some exquisite biochemical versions that were meticulously created. They were embedded with the demons of the Greatsword world, the aberrations of the alien world, the perfect blood of the legend of the night world, and the genes of the magical animals of the Harry Potter world. They possessed even more dangerous lethality and special abilities. It could be said that most of the Universe team's strength was reflected in these biochemical technologies. Jin Zhonghuan pondered for a moment and suddenly made a decision. Cui Jinghui, we're not waiting anymore. Control the ghouls to attack now. But Captain, it's still daytime. If we use the ghouls now, we'll lose another curtain of darkness scroll. Why don't we wait until Ning Daoqi meets the target? It'll be dark by then. Cui Jinghui said hesitantly. Cui Jinghui, are you questioning my orders? Jin Zhonghuan asked sternly. Understood. I'll order the ghouls to attack now. Cui Jinghui replied with cold sweat all over his face. Cui Jinghui. Jin Zhonghuan looked at him coldly, and the look in his eyes made him shudder. Don't think that you have the right to question my orders just because your substitute ability is very suitable for commanding ghouls. I can give you abilities, but I can also take them away. Understand? Cui Jinghui trembled all over and replied with extreme fear. Yes. Captain. Dozens of miles behind Chenong, the giant stingray monster suddenly woke up from its deep sleep. It flapped its wings and began to move forward, which caused a commotion among the ghouls hanging in its abdomen. However, a humanoid vine-like shadow appeared on the back of the stingray. The shadow's tentacles pierced into the brains of the stingray and the strongest ghouls, and the commotion quickly subsided. The stingray did not fly high, but it was very fast. In a few breaths, it had shortened the distance between it and Chunong by a quarter. At this time, the projection of Chunong finally moved. In the projection's energy perspective, it showed that blue magnetic true energy was spreading rapidly along the magnetic field lines of the Earth. True energy threads as thin as spider webs quickly covered the earth under the magical plant's senses. With Chun-Ang's body as the hub, the magnetic true energy absorbed the magnetic force in the air and grew visibly stronger. In Chun-Ang's senses, countless chaotic and manic consciousnesses filled with anger, hatred, and resentment were rapidly approaching. In the feedback of the magnetic field, a huge flattened organism carrying a dense number of parasitic organisms swept across the air and approached his position. In the space team's base, Cui Jinghui was sweating profusely as he controlled his substitute. His substitute ability was very special. Even from 1,000 miles away, it could be used perfectly. Coupled with the parasitic control ability of the substitute, it was practically the perfect commander for the space team, which mainly relied on biochemical technology. The Vanguard has begun contact, Cui Jinghui said calmly. Pu Suansi, Jin Zhonghuan ordered coldly. Got it, Appa. Pu Suansi revealed a cold smile and looked at Cui Jinghui with disgust. Suddenly, he turned into a shadow and pounced on Cui Jinghui. Dozens of ferocious black shadows did not wait for the skate to stop and pounced down from its abdomen. Suddenly, a mass of dense, solid shadows burst out from their bodies. The dark canopy from the heroes of Might and Magic World shrouded an area of 10 square kilometers in complete darkness. The tentacles inserted into the brains of the ghouls trembled violently, causing the expressions of these ferocious monsters to become even more ferocious. With a shrill howl that did not sound like a human's, the life force of the ghouls was instantly squeezed dry. A few ghouls turned into dried corpses and fell to the ground. Their souls, wrapped in the howl, pounced on Chun-Ang like a banshee. Black magic banshee's howl. Go to hell. Pu Suansi's soul appeared in Cui Jinghui's substitute. When the banshee's soul was just a few steps away from Chun-Ang, he completely detonated this black magic. The banshee's soul melted in the howl and turned into a venomous curse that wrapped around Chun-Ang's body. At this moment, in a situation that no one had expected, Chun-Ang's right palm struck out like a blade. A power filled with impurities. Chapter 360. The magnetic true qi wrapped around Chun-Ang's right palm, and the sharp true qi turned into a saber light that was beyond imagination. 21. It passed through the magnetic field at an incredible speed. This speed had exceeded the speed at which neurons could transmit electrical signals. When the visual signal was transmitted to the brain by the eyeball, the magnetic palm knife had already appeared in front of them. The magnetic qi of the positive pole turned into a palm knife, and it was accelerated to the extreme in the magnetic field of the negative pole. Pu Suansi's soul was attached to the corpse of the ghoul, and she could only see a bright light flash. This was the light speed hand knife. The knife light and the magnetic hand knife touched the ghoul at almost the same time, but the ghoul's visual organs transmitted the light signal to the brain, and the brain continued to transmit the signal to the substitute. During this process, the magnetic hand knife had already swept through the body of the ghoul that had pounced first. Jin Zhonghuan only heard Pu Suansi let out an inhuman scream, and then she turned into a shadow and bounced out of Cui Jinghui's body, falling to the ground. Her spirit body flickered in the illusion, as if her soul would dissipate at any moment. The other members of the universe team wanted to help her up, but as soon as they got close, they screamed in fear. Pu Suansi's spirit body shed tears of blood, and a huge knife cut across her face, almost splitting her head into two. She was like a goldfish out of water, weakly opening and closing her mouth to breathe, and her red eyes were filled with unwillingness and despair. Save me. Someone recognized Pu Suansi's mouth shape, but everyone was scared out of their wits. Cui Jinghui, who was standing to the side, knelt on the ground powerlessly. Beads of blood seeped out of his 7 orifices, meandering across his face, and then dripping drop by drop onto the ground, seeping into his clothes. After a few breaths, no one dared to approach them. The light of life in Pu Suansi's eyes gradually disappeared, and then the Lord God prompted, one member of the universe team eliminated, team battle, score -1. The rookies of the universe team next to her covered their mouths, trying their best not to cry out. Jin Zhonghuan looked at Pu Xuanxi's corpse in shock. Pu Xuanxi's body gradually withdrew from the spirit body state. After recovering, there were no wounds on her face. Only tiny beads of blood seeped out of her 7 orifices, sliding across the intact skin of the corpse and dripping to the ground. On the side, Cui Jingwei's body was twitching as he struggled. He had stubbornly survived, but from his unfocused gaze, everyone in the universe team knew that he had lost his sight. Captain! Cui Jingwei's hands scratched the ground, leaving streaks of blood. Jin Zhonghuan had no choice but to say, "I'm here, Cui Jingwei." Cui Jingwei crawled over to where Jin Zhonghuan was. Jin Zhonghuan hurriedly stopped him, but he did not expect to see the projection next to him halfway. Cui Jingwei's eyes suddenly focused, and he turned his head to stare at Chun Ang's projection. It was as if that projection was the only thing left in the world, and it sent chills down the spines of the rest of the universe team. "Cui Jingwei, can your eyes see?" Jin Zhonghuan asked. No. Cui Jingwei turned around in fear and shook his head frantically. My eyes have what?" Jin Zhonghuan asked sternly. "What's in your eyes?" His voice was flustered and exasperated. It was as if he had completely torn off the mask of a calm and collected gentleman. He sounded like a lunatic. Cui Jingwei did not say anything. It was as if he had seen a living devil. He slowly turned his head to look at Chun Ang's projection, and Chun Ang's projection was also smiling at the universe team. Cui Jingwei was completely controlled by fear. His whole body was trembling, and he ignored Jin Zhonghuan's stern warning. His pale face was covered in large drops of cold sweat. And when Chun Ang's projection looked at Cui Jingwei and the other universe team members, it was as if it had a life of its own, and it glowed with a different light. Chun Ang smiled, and the other veterans of the universe team shuddered, and someone even shouted in fear, "He's alive! He's alive! He's here! He killed Pu Xuanxi and Cui Jingwei. Turn it off." Jin Zhonghuan turned around and said sternly, "Li Zichuan, turn off the projector. Lu Ranqi, disconnect the demonic plants." No one responded to his words for a long time. He looked up at Lu Ranqi and saw that she was trembling all over. Her spirit had completely fused with the senses of the demonic plants, and she came to the riverside where Chun Ang was. She saw a strand of yang magnetic sword qi sweeping past the yin magnetic field under Chun Ang's feet. The strand of sword qi kept accelerating in the intertwining of the yin and yang magnetic field, and finally surpassed everything. Countless corpses of ghouls fell from the sky like dumplings. Some were already corpses, and some were still bearing their fangs and claws. Their faces were ferocious, and then they became corpses in the process of diving down. Lu Ranqi saw that some ghouls had fused with the genes in their bodies and grew predatory organs. They wanted to suck Chun Ang's blood and qi, and then suddenly died. Some ghouls had fused with the demonic plants and changed their life forms. This time, Lu Ranqi could personally feel that the sword qi had silently cut through all the cells of the demonic plants and ghouls, causing tens of thousands of plants to die in an instant. The biochemical ghouls with strong vitality and abnormal life forms were constantly changing and evolving endlessly. From the large ghouls that had fused with the demonic plants in the forest to the small viruses and bacteria in the air, they were all cut, and killed by the sword light intertwined with the yin and yang magnetic field. It was only a moment, but in Lu Ranqi's mind, it was extremely long. She suddenly heard Jin Zhonghuan's voice, but she was already too weak to respond. She had witnessed everything with her own eyes. Her spirit had been completely penetrated by the sword intent in the magnetic sword light, and her soul was almost destroyed. She could only open her mouth and then fall down powerlessly. Jin Zhonghuan saw bright red beads of blood oozing out of Lu Ranqi's 7 orifices. He immediately took 2 steps back in fear and shouted crazily, "Beast! Bastard! Come out if you have the guts! What kind of man are you to hide your head and show your tail?" Jin Zhonghuan vented crazily. He looked up at the other members of the universe team, and saw that they were so terrified that they couldn't control themselves. He suddenly became furious. "You bastards, if you dare to have this kind of expression again, I won't need him to do anything. I'll kill you first." From the corner of his eyes, he saw that the projection of Chunong was still standing there. He roared, "Li Zichuan, do you want to die? Turn it off." "I've already turned it off." Li Zichuan sobbed. He curled up in fear in the corner, took out the projector's switch, and showed it to Jin Zhonghuan. "I've tried to turn it off long ago, but that thing isn't a projection." Jin Zhonghuan saw that the other members of the universe team had extremely horrified expressions on their faces. Their eyeballs were protruding and bloodshot, and they were looking at him with extreme fear behind him. Jin Zhonghuan turned around and saw Chun Ong standing behind him with a smile. He raised his hand and said, "I have a sword. Please judge it. Please." Jin Zhonghuan replied woodenly. In the next instant, the saber light sliced through the void. Chapter 361. Jin Zhonghuan frantically ran forward. His whole body turned into a shadow as he ran through the forest. 21. A terrible wound extended from his right rib to his left shoulder. White bones could be seen through the wound, but he didn't even have the time to bandage the wound. He only cared about running away frantically. Don't ever think about this blade of mine. Every time you think about it, it's equivalent to facing this blade again. Chenang's words suddenly appeared in Jin Zhonghuan's mind. Before he could shout, "Don't!" an indescribable blade light appeared in his memory. Then, Jin Zhonghuan's body visibly shook. It was as if an invisible blade energy had appeared from an unimaginable place. Blood splattered, and another 2 inches deep wound appeared on his back. Looking at the other parts of Jin Zhonghuan's body, there were dozens of large and small blade wounds on his body. "I can't think about it. I can't think about it. I'll die if I think about it. I'll die." Jin Zhonghuan roared crazily. He used all his strength to run forward, hoping that extreme exhaustion could make him forget the nightmare in his memory. He had already understood that the projection was not Chun Ang's real body, but the Chun Ong in Chui Jinghui's memory. Chui Jinghui saw Chun Ang's appearance and remembered him in his heart. Chun Ong could come back to life in his memory. If he hadn't reacted at the last moment and killed Chui Jinghui with one strike, he would have died under Chun Ang's blade. Even so, he was hit by half of Chun Ang's blade. Not only did it almost cut him in half, but that half of the blade was also engraved in his consciousness. As long as he recalled it, he would once again face the moment when Chun Ong slashed him. "I can't dodge. I can't lock onto the trajectory. I can't see where it came from. I can't predict where it will end." That was a blade from the gods. Jin Zhonghuan could not control his consciousness to trace back to that saber. Just as the memory of that moment surfaced, he felt that hair-raising sharpness again. This time, 2 thoughts appeared in the saber light, and another bone-deep wound appeared on his body. "I can only withstand 5 thoughts at most. After 5 thoughts, my injury will be fatal. Moreover, I have a premonition that as long as I recall that saber light for more than 10 thoughts, the remaining half of the saber will appear again. This time, the person who remembers it is me. Unless I kill myself, I will definitely die." Jin Zhonghuan tried his best to avoid recalling that blade light. He was also analyzing it with all his wisdom. "Right now, I definitely can't meet up with my teammates. Although they didn't face that blade directly, they more or less remembered some information from that moment. If I'm with them, that blade will probably be completed immediately and kill us all. Even if I only communicate with them, there will be the danger of my mental imprint becoming complete. Just one slash, just one slash. He's not 9-star at all. That bastard from Team Prodigy." Jin Zhonghuan's heart was overflowing with grief and indignation. He's a powerhouse who has broken through the barrier. This time, 5 thoughts appeared in the memory of the blade light, and it killed Jin Zhonghuan. Forcing himself to forget that memory, Jin Zhonghuan knelt on the ground. The wounds on his body were already numb. The strengthened, perfect human pillar bloodline was trying to restore his life. The flesh around the wounds wriggled, trying to heal, but when they stuck back together, it was as if time had reversed, and the wounds immediately returned to their original state. This is the cells remembering the wounds. A female figure landed in front of Jin Zhonghuan, stroked his wound, and said, "To be able to make the cells of the people in the pillar remember such an injury, and even fear healing." Zhonghuan, what kind of expert did you provoke? Li Zichuan and the others' expressions of fear. Even if the Lord God was in his heart, he wouldn't be as fearful. What did you encounter? Why must a person like me, who knows nothing, save you? The woman took out a handful of blood-red liquid, opened Jin Zhonghuan's mouth, and poured it down his throat. Then, she lifted Jin Zhonghuan's clothes and tried to use her will to erase the memory of the cells around the wounds. As soon as she touched the wounds, the woman felt a blade light in her consciousness. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The woman supported her head that seemed to have been chopped off and cried in pain. "What the hell? What is this?" Fortunately, with external help, the human pillar's powerful cells finally had a chance to fight back. Together with the woman's mental magic, they slowly erased the will of the wounds on Jin Zhonghuan's body. After a long time, other than the wound from the right rib to the left shoulder, which the woman didn't dare to touch, the other wounds finally healed. "Jiang Taiyan, if you didn't come, I almost died." Jin Zhonghuan touched Jiang Taiyan's face and smiled bitterly. "What happened to you guys? Why did that bitch Pu Xuanxi die just like that? Why was Cui Jingwei killed by your substitute? They don't dare to tell me, Zhonghuan. You have to tell me." Jiang Taiyan questioned. "We encountered a very terrifying enemy. He borrowed Cui Jingwei's body and wanted to kill us all. Pu Xuanxi, Lu Ranxi, and the others are all dead. Taiyun, promise me, if you see a very resplendent blade light blossoming from my body, you will kill me." Jin Zhonghuan pinched her hand and solemnly repeated, "You must kill me. Understand? Taiyan, answer me." He asked loudly. "Understood," Taiyan said while crying. Jin Zhonghuan looked at Taiyan's painful eyes and sobbed. "It's good that you understand, otherwise we will all die. I was too arrogant, Taiyan. That person is someone that our team can't deal with. No, it should be said that he is an existence that all of us, samsara travelers together, can't deal with. If we want to survive, all the teams must unite. We must even unite this world to oppose their storyline experts. When facing that blade, Taiyan, I only thought of you. I want to live with you." Jin Zhonghuan cried bitterly. "I want to live with you." He stuffed a stone arrow into Jiang Taiyan's palm. Taiyan asked in panic, "What's wrong?" "Zhonghuan, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly say such things?" Jin Zhonghuan looked at the illusion of Chun Ong in front of him that only he could see. He hugged Taiyan tightly in his arms and raised his head, letting his tears drip on Taiyan's body. It was cold. Taiyan looked at Jin Zhonghuan's determined eyes in fear and felt the cold tears on her skin. Then, under her incredulous eyes, a blade light appeared on Jin Zhonghuan's body and his head fell off. "No!" Jiang Taiyan cried crazily. She bathed in Jin Zhonghuan's blood and held his head. She almost had a mental breakdown. A familiar voice sounded in her ears. 6 thoughts have passed. It's useless. Taiyan, kill me. Unexpectedly, the more I don't want to remember, the clearer it is. No. Jiang Taiyan cried bitterly. You can still live, Zhonghuan. You are a pillar person. As long as you have the life essence of a vampire, you can still live. Don't look. Taiyan, don't look. Jin Zhonghuan's blood blocked Jiang Taiyan's vision, but it could not stop the blade light and the figure in her eyes from becoming clearer. The scene of Chun Ong smiling and waving the blade seemed to appear clearly in front of her again. Use this stone arrow that can create a substitute and give it to the Shenwu team. My only request is to let you live. Let them make a contract with the God Lord. Let them use this gold level 8-star tool as the price to let you live. Tell them that without the stone arrow, everyone is dead. Look into my eyes, Taiyan. Remember this moment. Forget everything else. Just remember that the two of us are together. Don't look at anything. Don't think about anything. You must remember me. Remember that I love you. Jiang Taiyan cried and nodded. In her eyes, there seemed to be only Jin Zhonghuan's eyes in her arms, and she could see that Jin Zhonghuan's eyes were only looking at her. The shadow of Chun Ang's smile beside her seemed to be fading away, diluting in her memory. Perhaps only love could make her forget this blade. Only the closer I am to death, the more I understand my true feelings. Taiyin, don't take revenge from me. As long as you live to reach the 9 stars, you will find a way to resurrect me. You must forget the hatred. At this moment, I only allow you to remember me. Forget everything else for me. Forget. Taiyin cried and nodded. Standing in front of Jin Zhonghuan, the shadow of Chun Ang's smile finally waved the blade. His life and shadow disappeared together. Jiang Taiyin felt the head in her arms lighten, and the last of her tears flowed out. Chapter 362. The Universe team is done for. The captain of the Viper team, Steven, sighed. They've only lost their captain and a few main forces. Most of them are still alive, and the management structure is intact. Why do you say they're done for? Grim twisted her slender waist like a beautiful boa as she climbed onto Steven's back. She stuck out her tongue and asked with a sweet smile as she stuck it out beside Steven's ear. Steven stroked Glenn's head with a cold smile and suddenly reached out to strangle her neck. Brainless idiot, do you think you're stronger than Jin Zhonghuan? Do you think you're smarter than me? Glenn didn't know why she had angered this moody demon king. She struggled and said, No, I didn't. Jin Zhonghuan, who's 100 times stronger than you, is dead. I, who's 10,000 times smarter than you, is sure that the Universe team is destroyed. Why do you still dare to act so slutty? What you should do is fear. He looked into Glenn's eyes as if he wanted to imprint the brutality and madness of this moment in her mind forever. I've always admired your stupidity, but you have to learn to fear. Fear the strong. You're no stronger than an ant in front of the existence that killed Jin Zhonghuan. Even I'm afraid. How can an idiot like you not care? Because of your stupidity? Steven smiled cruelly. Then remember the fear of this moment. Seeing that Green's pretty face had turned purple and her eyes were filled with fear and panic, Steven finally let go of her neck with a laugh. Steven, you scoundrel. Beautiful women are meant to be loved, not used to vent your fear. A blurry shadow was projected from the ring in front of Steven and said to him with a smile, You Middle Easterners who treat women as slaves have no right to say that to me. Ben Hazm. Steven sneered. Who in the Universe team joined you? So blind. Don't you know that the Truth team is as cruel to non-believers as the Inferno? Mr. Jean has become our brother in the church. We're like a family to him. All right, Steven, we don't have time to probe here and there. Even the arrogant Shenwu team has lowered their heads to seek cooperation. You should know how bad things have gotten. Our remaining 4 teams might all die in this mission. Hazm said solemnly. I don't know. Li Zaizuan, who sought refuge with me, performed a frontal lobe surgery on himself in order to survive. Now, he's completely useless. He doesn't remember anything. Steven sighed. Frontal lobe surgery? Is it that stupid surgery that Westerners invented to cure neurosis? He removed the frontal lobe of his brain? He could really be so ruthless to himself. He must be very quiet right now. Quiet like a plant. Steven made a lame joke and said coldly, I don't know what forced them to do such a cruel thing to themselves, but I feel fear. They must know something, but they don't even dare to think about it. When I saw Li Zaichuan stab the awl into the upper part of his right eye socket and destroy the frontal lobe of his brain, I took advantage of the situation. I felt fear. Don't tell me you don't have this fear, Hazm. I have it too. Although Jin Zaiwan wasn't as ruthless as Li Zaizuan, he also sealed his memory. I don't know much more than you do, but Jin Zhonghuan and Ariel's fates tell us what will happen to us if we don't work together. The Shenwu team took in the most members of the Universe team. Do you know what the consequences were? When the survivors of the Universe team gathered together, a terrifying incident occurred. In the end, one of their official members was severely injured. In the end, the captain used all his strength to save the survivors. So that's what happened. Steven's expression changed. He knew how terrifying the captain of the Shenwu team was. Otherwise, why do you think the Shenwu team would take the initiative to cooperate with us? Hazm sneered. Steven pondered for a moment and asked, The vice captain of the universe team, Jiang Taiyan, also joined the Shenwu team. Yes, she carried the most important relic of her lover, an 8-star gold-grade item. Jin Zhonghuan thought that it was the key to breaking through the situation. When Jin Zhonghuan died, she was there. She watched as her lover was killed, but there was nothing she could do. I think this woman is going crazy. But with that item, she became a member of the Shenwu team under the protection of the contract, Hasm's side. The Shenwu team is going to stop Ning Daoqi from fighting Yangguang. They're using the power of the storyline characters in their hands. It can be said that they are putting in a lot of effort to nurture those storyline characters. They want us to contribute our power too. The Shenwu team suggested that the captains of the 4 teams form a leadership group to plan and use our resources more rationally, nurturing the power that we can control and influence. That's normal. Since the enemy is so terrifying, then Ning Daoqi is no longer a one-time item to be wasted. He is a very precious resource. Did the Shenwu team inform you? Stephen raised his head and asked. Next Thursday, there will be a meeting of the 4 teams. It is also a meeting of the Li family, Song family, Fortress Invincible, Cihang Jing Mosque, Buddhism, Taoism, Turks, Goryeo, and other anti-sway forces. The Shenwu team wants to control the remaining forces of the 3 teams, Goryeo, and geniuses without any bloodshed. They want to take control of these forces. Hasm curled his lips in disdain. This way, as long as they get rid of the mysterious enemy of the Windchasers, they will be the winner. Stephen sneered and said, they want to use that person to suppress us. As long as we don't want to die, we will have to pay the price. But we are not to be trifled with. Hasm sighed. The blurry figure slowly disappeared in front of Stephen. Stephen stood up from his seat and looked toward the south. He was not as ignorant as he claimed to be. He also knew that Hasm was hiding some things, such as the mysterious expert who stood by the Yangtze River and the blade that could not be looked at directly. Playing with the projection device in his hand, Stephen said in a panic, a peak 9-star martial arts expert who might even be able to break through to the next level? Our luck is really not bad. Chunong stood on the huge carcass of the giant ray. The remains of the ghouls piled up like a small hill by his feet. Chapter 363. The dark canopy of the heavens had yet to dissipate. Chunong looked up at the night sky and smiled. Actually, the easiest way is to split open this darkness. That universe team's trump card looks scary, but it's not a threat to you. He gestured to the ghouls at his feet. The weakness of these monsters is too obvious. In front of sunlight, they're almost vulnerable. There aren't many people who can break the dark canopy of the heavens. This is a level 4 spell after all. Even a martial arts powerhouse would need a 7-star level to break it. Plus, the universe team has a lot of tricks up their sleeves. All in all, it's still very troublesome. Luli smiled bitterly. If it's in the dark, these monsters are even more troublesome. They're a serious threat to us. Luli explained. Do you know why I didn't split open the darkness and instead went through so much trouble to keep their corpses intact? Chen Ong looked at the bloody corpses with interest. He felt his scientist's heart stirring again. He didn't wait for Lu Li to answer. It's not easy for the universe team to survive until today. If it didn't die by my hands this time, Jin Zhongwan would have died sooner or later. A team without a complete scientific research system used a biochemical weapon that they couldn't even figure out when they were enemies of a dimension. I don't know what's wrong with them to be so stupid. Don't they know what it means to provide material for the enemy? Chenong sneered. Luli didn't know what to say. The universe team was definitely not stupid. In fact, if it wasn't for the so-called Tang Dynasty world being so confusing, the universe team wouldn't use biochemical weapons so casually even if they were beaten to death. But who knew that the Tang Dynasty world would have an unscientific plot change like the primordial demon that descended from outer space? God weapon Xuanqi dimension of an unknown world line. Great gods like Niwa and Pangu were all aliens from advanced civilizations. Primeval Demon was the strongest combat scientist with the most advanced technology in the entire universe. He hunted down the remnants of civilizations and their mother planet that had been destroyed. He accidentally crossed over to this damned Tang dynasty world with Nuwa. In the end, the alien scientist Nuwa from the God of War civilization sealed the primordial demon who had been severely injured while traveling through space and time. She even left behind the peerless martial art, the God of War catalog, which was used to modify an alien's battle body. She also sent the biological weapon, the demonic dragon, to guard it. So all the martial arts experts of the Tang Empire who had broken through the void had reincarnated as aliens and fought against the alien invaders of the primordial heavenly demon clan in the divine weapon plane. So the martial arts forces of this world were not only responsible for providing soldiers to the aliens, but also responsible for monitoring the sealed primordial demon. This was very Great Tang. Who would have thought that the Great Tang, which seemed to be a world of martial arts, would have such a sci-fi background? Considering that Huang Yi had written sci-fi wuxia works such as The Great Swordsman and The Interstellar Prodigal Son, Lu Li was unable to refute such a ridiculous setting. Therefore, it made perfect sense for the strongest combat scientist in the outer planet, the primordial demon, to control Yangguang to start the war with the Heshabi in an attempt to replenish the energy of the high-energy crystal Heshabi. If this was not the background of the war with the Heshabi provided by the Lord God, Lu Li would not have believed a word of it. So on the surface, the war with the Heshabi was a battle for the fate of the artifact in China, but in fact, it was initiated by the alien combat race to recharge the energy crystal. It was related to a small-scale conflict between two advanced alien civilizations. Luo Xian commented, "That's bullsh***. At this time, as the leader of the Wind Chaser squad who was unfortunately involved in the interstellar war between the God of War civilization and the heavenly demon civilization in the divine weapon plane, Lu Li could only pinch her nose and walk on the pirate ship. She carefully echoed the combat scientist Chenong and said, "The cosmic team's biochemical weapons are actually very powerful. Most worlds can't crack their genetic encryption for biochemical weapons. My existence is already bullying those country bumpkins. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to break the balance of the war with the Heshabi this time." Chenong sighed. A twisted plant slowly grew in front of him. If Lu Ranchi was here, she would recognize it at a glance. This was her contracted creature, the magical plant. However, the magical plant Chenong had restored was its most primitive form, and also the form with the most potential. The magical plant frantically plundered the nutrients and genes of the ghoul's flesh and blood where it had taken root. A large number of gene fragments were extracted and provided to Chenong. The genetic code, encrypted by the cosmic team, was almost non-existent to Chenong. A large number of gene fragments that they thought were superior were thrown away by Chenong like garbage. As the gene fragments were restored and complete, if Jin Zhonghuan, the captain of the cosmic team, was here, he would probably be shocked speechless. This was because the gene reconstructed by Chenong was very close to the complete form of these gene samples. Xenomorph, Night Demon, Vampire, Perfect Blood, Werewolf Virus, Greatsword Demon, T-Virus, Progenitor Virus, and so on. The modifications of the cosmic team that thought they were clever were directly thrown away by Chenong like garbage. If Jiang Taiyin, the scientist of the cosmic team, was here and saw Chunang's thoughts and methods of cutting, dissecting, and gene modulation, she would probably die of shame. The difference between two people was as big as the difference between a chimpanzee and a human scientist. In front of Chun Ang's biochemical research, Jiang Taiyan's intelligence was not much higher than that of a chimpanzee. The accumulation of knowledge was about the level of two paramecia. The form of the magical plant was constantly changing. A large number of nutrients were consumed, allowing the half-fungus, half-plant magical plant to grow rapidly. Some of its organs rapidly evolved into the form of an animal. Some insects like Hu Feng crawled out of the reproductive cavity of the magical plant, flapped their wings, and flew out against the wind. Lu Li watched as these little things quickly killed all the animals and plants around them and transported them into the digestive cavity of the magical plant. The insects and small animals were quickly covered by the mycelium. They were digested, providing energy and nutrients to the magical plant while contributing their own genes. A large number of gatherers were produced quickly, plundering all the resources around them. Luli even saw a few frog-like gatherers crawling out of the magical plant and jumping into the river next to it to hunt for the aquatic creatures in the river. The magical plant also extended a tentacle into the river. In just a few minutes, Luli saw large creatures like tigers and leopards appear among the creatures hunted by the gatherers. There were also more and more types of gatherers. Even among the low-level gatherers like the worker bees, there were a few biochemical creations that posed a serious threat to the reincarnators. Luli could easily tell that these were only the basic gatherers produced by the magical plant. The biochemical weapons responsible for killing and protecting the magical plant had not been produced yet. Luli began to feel fear. He finally understood what kind of mistake the cosmic team had made. Chapter 364. A small boat floated down the river. It was dusk, and Jiangling was already in sight. Ning Daoqi stood at the head of the boat and looked back at the sun sinking into the river. The night wind was getting stronger. Ning Daoqi tidied his hair and looked at the lights on the river in the distance. He could not help but smile bitterly. The senior member of the Shunwu team, Di Guangzong, stood on the big boat that blocked the river. He stood in the middle of the river with his hands behind his back and looked at Ning Daoqi's boat with a cold expression. The rushing river soon brought the boat to him. Ning Daoqi shook his head and sighed when he saw the person on the boat. "Brother Di, it's only been 3 days since I came down from the middle of Sichuan. It's been smooth sailing, but I can't match your speed. I'm so ashamed. Brother D must have something important to ask of me, since you have blocked the Yangtze River shipping under Yang Wang's eyes. Please tell me." "Brother Ning, I am here to stop you from meeting Yang Wang," Di Guangzong said calmly. "I hope you can give up this trip and return to Sichuan with me." "Huh?" Ning Daoqi laughed. "I cannot agree to this." "Brother, are you not going to ask why?" Di Guangzong was not angry. Instead, he asked calmly, "Why did I support you before and suddenly return now?" "Brother, you do not know the inside story. Why do you reject me?" "The world is bustling for benefits." Ning Daoqi smiled. "This is only for the benefit of Brother D and the others, nothing else." "That's a good thing to say, but our interests are also fellow Taoists' interests and also the great interests of the world. Regarding this matter, Master Daoxin has entrusted me to pass it to you. Brother, you will know once you read it." Di Guangzong took out Master Daoxin's handwritten letter and sent it with his palms. The wind wrapped around the letter and passed it to Ning Daoqi's hands. Ning Daoqi saw that the genuine qi wrapped around the letter did not dissipate. It was calm and steady, as if someone was holding it solemnly. Ning Daoqi's eyes brightened, and he secretly applauded. At the same time, his hands did not stop. He took the letter lightly and opened it. As expected, it was the handwriting of Master Daoxin. Then he concentrated and read it. Ning Daoqi heaved a deep sigh after he browsed through it. "Why'd it have to be like this?" The white-haired old man shook his head and said, "The wise men of Buddhism are ultimately burdened by their sections. The homeland of Shenzhou and millions of common people are actually incomparable to the gains and losses of a single family." He laughed as he tossed the letter into the air, allowing the night wind to blow it away. Turning around, he said to Di Guangzong, "Brother Di, please forgive me for not being able to agree with your actions. If I follow you, I'm afraid that China will be overturned and blood will flow. Although Daoqi isn't talented, he doesn't dare to disregard the common people of the world for the sake of one family, one clan. Yang Wang is tyrannical. I can die in front of him, but I would never dare to ally with the Turks and Goryeo to dig up the foundations of the Sui dynasty. In the name of the common people and the orthodoxy, how could I do such an inhumane and disrespectful thing? Yes, I don't like Yang Wang, but if the world were to become evil because of me, the people would be in dire straits. How could I bear to see that happen? I might as well cover my face with my hair and die of old age on a high mountain. I will go with my sword this time and discuss the Tao with Yang Wang in the atrium. If I succeed, I will avert a calamity for the world. If I fail, I will just die." Do you think that I am relying on my martial strength to be arrogant? So what if Yang Guang oppresses the world? So what if Yang Guang is invincible in the world? What does that have to do with me? My only wish for this trip is to listen to Yang Guang's reasoning with my own ears. For the common people of the world, for the Central Plains, I just want to seek a moment of respite. As for allying with Bai Xian of the Turks and Fu Kalen of Goryeo to kill Yang Guang together with the heroes of the world, Ning Daoqi shook his head and said, "How can you do that?" Di Guangzong was silent. He stared at Ning Daoqi's calm, old face that even had a hint of innocence. He slowly took out a stone arrow from his sleeve, and from his other sleeve, he took out a strange-looking demonic sword. The shape of the demonic sword was formed by many teeth and joints. It looked like a strange clock. When it was held in Di Guangzong's hand, Ning Daoqi suddenly felt that he had lost his real existence. It was as if the person standing in front of him was just an illusion of Di Guangzong, and Di Guangzong's real body had transcended time and was in another world. This sword is called the Constellation Tribulation. It can cut iron like mud, and it can even split gold and stone. However, the most magical thing is the special ability of this sword. It can control the time within 3 feet of the wielder. It was formed by the remains of the heavenly demon of the ancestor, and was formed by the anxiety of the Xian Tian evil emperor. The time is not far from it, and it is far more chaotic than flowing water. Within 3 feet of flowing water, time will not be able to restore it. Di Guangzong sighed. It actually has such a background? Ning Daoqi's eyes shone with a strange brilliance. I'm so lucky. I can only sigh that I can't see the peerless elegance of those few powerhouses with my own eyes. Brother Ning, you don't have to feel pity. I have inherited the true teachings of the Xian Tian evil emperor, and I can also show some of his elegance. Di Guangzong gently raised the Constellation Tribulation. His whole body seemed to be strangely divided into a few illusions, and each of them held a demonic weapon in their hands. He sighed softly. With a sword without a knife, it will be difficult to understand the true meaning of the evil emperor's martial arts. However, the martial arts path has always been that you will live after learning it, and you will die after imitating it. This sword is the martial arts path of my Di Guangzhou. The Constellation Tribulation demonic sword disappeared in front of Ning Daoqi's eyes, and the blade of the sword, which looked like an overlapping pagoda, streaked across the place with a naked eye couldn't see. The sword that surpassed time and cut off all of Ning Daoqi's escape routes cut through the void. It completely cut off the changes of the Sanzhou 8 pounces, broke through all the illusions, and pierced through all the truth and falsehood, forcing Ning Daoqi to face it head-on. The sword technique that surpassed time could always cut off any possible changes at the moment when Ning Daoqi's qi dynamic changed. With the strongest and most violent sword qi, it tore through all the illusions of time and space. Di Guangzong gave up the strange sword path that the Constellation Tribulation demonic sword was best at. It was to force Ning Daoqi to not be able to use the wonders of the mental martial arts path and have a competition of strength and vitality. The martial arts that Ning Daoqi was good at should have been the probing, changes, and responses of the 2 top chess players. However, all the changes, all the illusions, all the mysteries of time and space, distance, and timing were forcefully cut off by a sword. It was a face-to-face confrontation. In an instant, it was a dead end. Unable to control the reality, unable to grasp the distance, and losing the advantage of time and space, the Sanzhou 8 pounces were almost completely useless. The Divine Martial Team seemed to be prepared. They sent out Di Guangzong, who had the Constellation Tribulation demonic sword. He was indeed the nemesis of all the martial arts of the Great Tang. Only the reincarnators, who had seen countless martial arts in the chief god space and could draw on the wisdom of the martial arts of the endless world, could make such a counter. No matter how profound the concept was, or how sharp the spirit was, martial arts was ultimately a contest between the fist and the flesh and the sword and the body. Chapter 365. The Void. Di Guangzong's Yuan Qi sword seemed to strike the void, bringing with it a turbulent and devastating destructive yuan qi that seemed to rush into the endless void. Even though it shook the space, it instantly twisted and turned over, and countless irregular spatial ripples could be seen appearing and dissipating at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, the constellation Calamity in his hand seemed to have fallen into a quagmire, and the huge power he controlled became a burden. Ning Daoqi's palms seemed to have opened up a boundless space. No matter how Di Guangzong wreaked havoc, the crisscrossing sword qi was unable to move beyond that distance, as if there was a black hole hidden there. If it wasn't for Brother Di's carefree heavens, I might not have been able to see through the wonders of breaking the void. Ning Daoqi smiled. There's a fish in the North Ocean. Brother Di, do you know what touched me the most in the carefree heavens was not the pong in the sky, but the fish in the North Ocean, controlling qi with spirit. Di Guangzong sighed. Brother Ning is indeed wise. I didn't expect you to be able to integrate the true meaning of the carefree heavens into your Sansho 8 lunges in less than a month, completely making up for the flaws in your martial arts. Using the void to defeat the real, the meaning of the North Ocean is great. Today, I can't win against you. After saying that, he retreated. Ning Daoqi touched the trace of blood on his chin and shook his head with a bitter smile. The stone arrow in Brother Di's left hand, what material is it made of? It looks like the void is nothing. If you use it to defeat me, I won't even have a 30% chance of winning. Ning Daoqi felt a strange feeling from his wound, as if a part of him had left his body and entered another space. Keeping his guard up against these mutants, Ning Daoqi continued to go with the flow. On the other side, Di Guangzong reported to the team leader, Ning Daoqi has been pierced by the stone arrow. With his talent, he should be able to awaken a substitute. His martial art progress is too fast. I can't capture him anymore, so I executed Plan B and let him go to Jiangling. It doesn't matter, we just lost Ning Daoqi. We don't lack plot cannon fodder. Now, all the teams are investing resources to cultivate plot powerhouses. A substitute is both a weapon and a shackle. With it, we won't have to worry about these plot characters going out of control. The Shenwu team leader said coldly. Come back first. It's almost time for the Chu Tang meeting. The most important thing now is to control the leadership of the other teams. On the other side, Liu Carp's expression was extremely ugly. The magic plant's body had already expanded to an extremely large size. A few species that looked extremely dangerous lurked around it, protecting this enormous biological weapon manufacturing factory. Are there any materials with strong radiation? Chenong asked him with a smile. Lu Li had no choice but to take out a few high-yield nuclear weapons obediently, because he had already seen that Chenong was about to break the crust in case the lunatic extracted the high-radiation materials in the mantle and turned the magical plants into a heavy nuclear material refinery. Lu Li felt that it was better for her to be more obedient. Next, he was forced to continue throwing in all kinds of genetic samples and technological products. Lu Li only wanted to rejoice that he was not a scientific reincarnator. High-radiation cultivation room, eutrophication cultivation room, parasitic cultivation room, symbiotic cultivation room. It's a pity there's no way to embed a high-efficiency energy source, or else we could build a dark energy cultivation room. Chenong sighed. He turned back to look at the pale Lu Li and smiled. You've contributed so many important materials. I can't let you suffer a loss, can I? Now I'll give you some rewards. Option 1. I can give every member of your team a quota of genetic modification and body enhancement. You can choose what gene fragments you want to embed. Hearing the Lord God's reminder in his ear, he looked at the menu in his hand. Perfect enhancement of the T-virus. Alien scientist Primordial Demon, after analyzing the progenitor virus, found a T-virus enhancement that perfectly adapts to the human body. There's a high chance of awakening psychokinesis, physical attributes greatly improved, brain damage less than 70%, will not die. After death, there's a certain chance of mutation, stairway of the sun parasites, energy tyrants, alien liquors, demon zombies, and other new biochemical species. Inheriting the identity of a reincarnator can even retain memories. No side effects. For some reason, Luli seemed to feel a hint of bewitchment in the Lord God's reminder. It seemed that even the Lord God was curious about the potential of new reincarnators, such as the parasites of the Stairway of the Sun, energy tyrants, alien lickers, and demon zombies in the Lord God's space. Indeed, at the same time, in the Lord God's long list of enhancements, there was such a very conspicuous enhancement at the top of the bloodline biochemical bloodline. Luli almost looked straight ahead as he flipped the page. In his heart, he was almost screaming crazily. The Lord God must be curious. He's definitely curious. Choosing this kind of enhancement will definitely lead to death. Absolutely. Then, whichever zombie reincarnator joins our team. In the following enhancements, he once again felt the deep malice of the Heavenly Demon Tribe's chief scientist standing in front of him in collusion with the Lord God's space. Perfect Blacklight Virus Enhancement. Luli did not dare to read on and quickly turned the page. Do you think I don't know that enhancing the Blacklight virus will lead to death first? The one who survives is the virus aggregation with my memories, emotions, and personality. The perfect beginning is definitely a trap for the Lord God's enhancement. Perfect human aberration enhancement. Perfect greatsword enhancement can be male or female. Perfect abyss enhancement cannibalism. Perfect Prometheus enhancement. Aberration prototype symbiotic body. Abyss worm enhancement. Luli suddenly shuddered when he flipped to this point. Even perfection is gone. Even the Lord God doesn't dare to fake the side effects of this enhancement. Perfect blood enhancement can perfectly fuse and enhance the bloodline and optimize the perfect enhancement of the host's original bloodline. Another trap. Luli continued to flip to the back. Incomplete true ancestor enhancement. Perfect blood tribe. Perfect pillar man enhancement. Cosmic life form. Substitute enhancement. Substitute. She quickly flipped the enhancement menu in her hand to the end. Instinctively, she felt that behind these seemingly perfect and powerful bloodline modifications, there was almost overflowing malice. Luli stuffed the enhancement menu back into Chun Ang's hand in fear and shook his head like a rattle drum. He's a good person. Our team has no intention of developing in this direction. Oh, that's a pity. Chanong sighed. I'll ensure that you continue to develop these and conduct follow-up research. This intention of using us as lab rats. He even said it out loud. Luli sneered in her heart. Chapter 366. Special organs are also divided into 3 routes of strengthening. Chanong explained patiently. Your team's power system leans towards martial arts, so I won't recommend any spiritual routes to you. Magic organs. Those things. I don't think you're interested in growing powerful biochemical organs, such as nuclear furnaces or subspace vibrators in your body. Yes. Luli's smile was very forced. His index finger flicked anxiously. No matter how he thought about it, it was hard to understand how these things that sounded powerful in sci-fi could be related to the style of magic organs and spiritual roots. As if seeing through his confusion, Chun-Ong smiled. Be it cultivation or arcana, some of the more primitive systems have high demands on the environment, or in other words, the laws of the world. Some require natural air, magical elements, and occasionally the mana net to control the violent, primitive magical energies. They're not practical at all for extraterrestrial visitors like you who often transmigrate. Of course, it is not a problem for those who have reached a higher level or a more complete system, such as those who have advanced maintenance skills or planeswalkers, because their research on the world has reached a very profound level. But you don't have such a level yet, do you? Therefore, we can only develop super organs that are based on biological organs and have a relatively closed system. They can use radiation, magnetic fields, magic power, vitality, and other kinds of energy to ensure that you can cast Fireball under magic radiation. In a world of technology without magic power, you can also cast Fireball by holding a wire. Then, are there worlds without those biochemical organs that can't work? Luli asked curiously. Yes, Chenong replied with a smile. For example, this gas radiation furnace has many world laws that conflict with it. In those worlds, I guarantee that it will make you suffer no pain after a bang. but the biochemical organs are based on the same principle as the other organs in your body. In worlds where it can't work, the primitive, crude organs in your body that are randomly pieced together by nature, such as lungs, won't work either. You're dead for sure in those worlds. Chunong added, I can guarantee that in worlds where the gas radiation furnace is unable to adapt, lungs are useless. However, in worlds where lungs are unable to adapt, such as planet Avatar, Inghua, Taibai, or even the surface of the sun, as well as similar gasless, highly radioactive environments, the furnace can still help you survive. For the worlds in the universe, your body's adaptability is a joke. The Earth-like environment that you can adapt to is like a grain of sand in the Ganges River. I advise you to choose organ replacement or cyberization, and then have the Lord God send us on missions to various alien worlds. Luli thought with a sneer. He could figure out with his toes that the next world that the Lord God would send them to would not be on Earth after strengthening this very adaptable organ. Then what Master has prepared for us should be the biochemical organs that can adapt to martial arts. Luli asked, Yes, there are many different directions on the road of martial arts. Although the genetic samples I've obtained are relatively few, it's enough to form 3 different complete systems. The first is the acupoint strengthening that can adapt to body refinement and vitality martial arts. The inspiration comes from martial arts world I've been to. The people there are proficient in physical training, and they can awaken their body and spirit into the main acupoint, making their physical bodies ever-changing. Luli's eyes lit up when he heard this. He carefully probed. Then why not directly give us the martial arts manuals of that world? Chenong glanced at him. The look that seemed to see through all his distracting thoughts made Lu Li's heart tremble. Fortunately, Chenong didn't seem to have the intention to expose his thoughts. Instead, he seriously replied, That world is the legendary immortal world. The vitality between heaven and earth is extremely thick. The natives there have countless mysteries hidden in their bodies, and their souls are innately powerful. How can a trash like you, who evolved from an ape, compare to them? People revert to their ancestry to become divine beasts, but you revert to your ancestry to become a monkey? People breathe in energy, but what do you breathe in? Pollution? Chenang's mockery made Lu Li's ears turn red. People in the immortal world rely on vitality and the endless potential of their bodies. Earthlings like you should just rely on technology and mutation. Chenong comforted him. I've developed the acupoint energy organs. In terms of potential, it's no less than the martial arts of that world. Through continuous transplants of energy organs, I've finally cultivated the ultimate combat body. It's strong and powerful. It's strong and powerful. Look at this as Zathos combat body, this chaotic 4 apes combat body. By cultivating one organ after another, it finally accumulates into a unique life form. It's also a grand path. Chenong praised. I feel that these combat bodies seem to be very dangerous. Lu Li wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, Can they surpass the human immortal martial arts just through strengthening? I don't think it's reliable. Of course, it's not just through strengthening. Chun Ong casually mentioned, Because of the rejection of the organs, I can only help you transplant the original body. You need to develop and awaken it yourself. Lu Li instantly became alert. How do I awaken it? For example, this Nine-Yang combat body needs the most energy organ, the head of the Sun Eater. It's made up of the energy organs in the head orifices like the Sun God's Sun, the Supreme God's Court, and the Tun Ri Qing Ming. Basically, it needs to grow in the environment of a star. For example, the Tun Ri Qing Ming needs to be on the surface of a supernova star. It needs to use the special technique, multidimensional Republic I exercise, to grow smoothly and finally awaken it by devouring the energy of a gamma storm. Let me tell you, after the Nine-Yang combat body devours 9 stars that are no less than the mass of the sun, you'll be able to kill anyone who stands in your way. You'll definitely not be inferior to any human immortal or 9 tribulation ghost immortal, and you'll be able to adapt to any world in the universe. I can guarantee that once you've cultivated the Nine-Yang combat body, as long as there's a sun in the universe, you'll be able to possess great power, and you won't lose your power because of the difference in the laws of the world, Chenong promised. Is there some condition that you haven't mentioned? And this Nanyang combat body, the condition to cultivate it is too harsh. Lu Li tried his best to suppress the fear in his heart. He roared in his heart, damn the Tun Ri Qing Ming, damn the eye exercise. Chief God, you've definitely messed things up. Can you control this guy? No, you can't control it anymore, right? There's a small condition. Every time you go to a world with different laws, you'll have to devour a sun in that world. Only then will you be able to assimilate the unique energy laws of that world. Let me give you a small suggestion. It's best not to choose those worlds with only one sun. There'll be trouble. Of course there'll be trouble. They'll fight me to the death. Lu Li screamed in his heart. Chapter 367. Let's think about it. Aren't there two more? Let me introduce them first, Master. Lu Li changed the topic with difficulty. He was afraid that Chenong would give him the Azathos battle form or something. He finally remembered the origin of the Azathos battle form. The second modification is simpler, but it's practical and reliable. It's called the Taizu's Long Fist in Biochemical Enhancement. It's easy to operate. If it's enhanced to an orangutan, it can unleash its power. Can we not talk about orangutans? Okay. Chenong readily accepted the advice. Even a paramecium can use it skillfully. Of course, if it's a real paramecium, the technological content may be higher. It needs the biochemical parent to grow again to create this organelle armor. Let's not talk about that. In cultivation, this enhancement is called immortal bone. In martial arts, it can also be called martial bone. Of course, it's not just bones. Any part of the human body will work. Like this. The magical plant extended a tentacle and showed a transparent tentacle that looked like a small petri dish to Lu Li. An eyeball with vertical pupils stared at him. The look gave Lu Li goosebumps. He noticed that a few nerve lines extended from the back of the eyeball and connected to the magical plant parent. The martial bone, dragon pupil, has thermal vision, high-sensitivity vision, dynamic vision, and quantum sensory system. It can be said to be the perfect biological vision organ. After the modification, your reaction speed will no longer be limited to the nervous system. It will be highly compatible with true energy. All the functions of the eyes can be evolved. It may not be as powerful as acupoint omniscience in the beginning. It may only allow you to see a little more clearly. However, as it continues to merge with your true energy and evolve, and as your martial arts continues to grow, your future will be limitless. It won't be like acupoint omniscience that limits your path. No matter which path you choose, it will perfectly merge with you. You've finally revealed yourself. So acupoint omniscience will replace the host. Lu Li's attention was focused on something strange. Chenong showed a smile that made Lu Li's hair stand. He whispered in Lu Li's ear, "Replacing the host path is better than enhancing an idiot like you who does everything for others." Puppet. Lu Li felt the deepest chill in his heart. It turned out that his so-called vigilance was actually so laughable in Chenong's eyes. While a puppet controlled by the main god, jumping up and down in fear of being controlled was indeed a joke. The martial bone optic nerves can completely change the route of nerve signal transmission. After the modulation, your nerve reaction speed will be increased by at least 5 times until your brain reaches its limit. In the petri dish of the magical plant was a tiny network of veins that looked like crystals. Lu Li finally came to her senses and threw away her ridiculous vigilance. Without the ability to resist, what was the difference between a powerhouse like Chenong and a main god? It would be better to sell the goods to 2 parties. At the very least, when the main gods were manipulating them, they would have a backer, and this backer seemed to be quite powerful. Martial bone, origin magnetic hand bone. Implanting a magnetic organ in your hand bone will allow you to sense and control magnetic fields at will. However, after the transplant, your true chi will gradually become magnetic. It's best to change to a magnetic attribute, true chi. The advantage is that it can be combined with the true chi attribute very quickly. Chenong looked at the crystal floating in the petri dish of the magical plant and suddenly added, "Right, the modulation method is to first remove your hand bone and then cultivate it." Finally, the third modulation. Chunong waved his hand to make the magical plant retract its tentacles, turned around and said to Lu Li, "To be honest, I don't recommend you choose the third one, because the genetic data obtained this time is biased towards biochemical, and there is not enough data for the third enhancement. If you want to perfect this enhancement, you should at least dissect a god." So, in essence, the third enhancement lacks data for basic development. Chenong asked him with his arms crossed, "Do you still want to choose? Why don't you listen?" Lu Li said seriously. The third enhancement is actually a high-end application of biochemical technology. It focuses on the quantum effect of humans, or, in layman's terms, it's the soul. It's closer to the soul, the part that's closely connected to the spirit. So I named it Martial Spirit. Chun-Ong tapped the magical plant's tentacles lightly, and two distorted shadows appeared in front of Lu Li. These two specimens, one has a special ability called substitution, and the other is a soul called spirit body. They're both specimens collected last time. Among them, substitution belongs to the side of the soul that's biased towards the quantum effect of the body, which is the side that's biased towards the soul. I call it martial spirit. Spirit body, on the other hand, completely belongs to the soul and contains the most complicated application of the soul. It belongs to the side of the soul, and based on its research, I call it martial spirit. There's no difference between martial spirit and martial spirit. It's just that one belongs to the consciousness of cells, and the other belongs to the consciousness of the soul. One is the hub of the spine, and the other is completely connected to the brain. But let me tell you the truth, martial spirit is closer to the origin, and it's more dangerous. Humans have 3 souls and 7 spirits. So martial spirit and martial spirit are also divided into 3 paths and 7 laws. If the previous biochemical enhancement is like transplanting organs and transforming the human body, then this biochemical enhancement is like transplanting soul organs and transforming your soul. If the other methods fail, I can repair them for you. But if martial spirit and martial spirit fail, your soul will scatter and you will never be able to live again. Chenong emphasized in the most solemn manner. The ability that originates from the 3 souls and 7 spirits is mysterious and unpredictable. Because of the lack of samples, I'm also not clear about the path after basic enhancement. Moreover, the application of the ability that you can obtain completely depends on your own development. Quantum effect involves space-time, energy, law, soul, and even higher dimensions. You might not even know the principles behind the abilities that you've obtained. For example, the Sparrow-Een martial spirit can understand ghosts and control other life forms that have a soul structure, whether they're alive or dead. In other words, it can control the souls of corpses, and it can also control the souls of the dead. The former is called corpse control, and the latter is called exorcism. Another example is the Dharma Treasury martial spirit, which can peek into the future for 3 seconds. The Dharma Realm martial spirit, which can stop time for 3 seconds. The embryonic light martial spirit, which can reincarnate and possess a body, and the true spirit is not concealed. The heavenly rush martial spirit, which can communicate with heaven and earth and be enlightened by the gods. The heaven and earth martial spirit, which can be born from nature and open the door of Xianpin. The goddess of grains martial spirit, which can increase one's comprehension to an exaggerated level, and the soul is close to the great Tao. Lu Li's eyes were dazzling, and she was truly shocked by these terrifying enhancements. Whether it was the embryonic light that could escape the control of the Lord God and regain freedom, or the Dharma Realm martial spirit that could almost go against the natural order and control time, they were all terrifying enhancements that even the Lord God could not provide. For the first time, Lu Li was completely moved. Chapter 368. Acupoint Connection, Martial Bone, Martial Soul, Martial Spirit. Lu Li's heart was in a fierce struggle. He clearly knew that there must be poison hidden behind these pies that fell from the sky, but he couldn't harden his heart to refuse them, because in the god space, he didn't have the right to be reserved. He didn't even know if he could return alive from the next mission, so he wasn't qualified to consider things like long-term consequences. Most of the reincarnators didn't have such a luxury as a future. What they could do was to live, and to do everything they could to survive, even if it meant drinking poison to quench thirst. I choose martial soul strengthening. Luli took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and said, "As for my teammates, let them decide for themselves." "Interesting," Chenong replied with a smile. "Do you want a customized set? As the first experimental subject, you can have a discount for all 3 types of strengthening. I'm also very curious about what realm a person who transplanted the martial bone, acupoint connection, and refined his soul into a martial soul carrier can reach in the end." "Then come on," Luli said with a smile. "Since we're going to suffer anyway, it's better to choose the most dangerous and most promising path. Let me see your bone structure and potential." Chun Ong pushed Lu Li into the magical plant. Lu Li had to endure the magical plant's sticky tentacles sliding on his body, and then an even more sticky mouth swallowed him. A light green, transparent liquid, like mucus, soaked him. Lu Li just wanted to hold his breath, but he felt a cool air seeping into his pores, so he didn't have to breathe at all. Chun Ang's voice clearly reached his ears. "Don't worry. The V11 nutrient solution has its own dissolved oxygen, and its active substances can maintain your body condition to the best. Now you have to wait for 2 hours for the nutrient solution to completely take over your body's circulatory system. Your muscles and bones are in good condition, and there are no signs of wear at all, just like a newborn. Let me see. According to your body condition, this body was completely created 3 months ago." Chenang's words shocked Lu Li. 3 months ago was exactly the time when they descended from the god space. "I didn't expect that when the sovereigns repair their bodies, they would also repair the damage to their bodies." Lu Li smiled bitterly in his heart. This was the first time he knew that after so many years in god space, he actually needed a storyline character outside of god space to remind him of this. "No, the last time it was repaired was 5 months ago. We rested in the space for 2 months before we carried out the task. Everyone only recovered when they returned to the space. How could it be 3 months ago?" Lu Li was shocked. He raised his head abruptly in the nutrient fluid and looked at the blurry figure projected by Chun Ong through the green nutrient fluid outside, the transparent plant substance. He could not see the details, but he could see that Chun Ong was working in front of the magical plant like a researcher. "Is it strange?" Chun Ang's voice reached his ears. "I'm not surprised at all. It seems that the technology behind the thing behind you is very old. Quantum information transmission is a very poor technology in terms of stability and safety, but it's good in terms of confidentiality. People like me can't decipher the possible spatial coordinates in your body. Going back in time won't work, and peeking at the lines of fate won't work either, because you're a completely new person without a past. If I try to peek at your river of fate, I would find that your fate is actually only 3 months. You are a new person with the memories of Lu Li, born in this world and receiving the memories of outer space. How is that possible?" Lu Li could not accept Chun Ang's words. He punched the transparent plant substance in front of him and asked in shock, "How could this happen? Why not?" Chun Ong spread his hands and said, "The most dangerous thing in this world is civilization. I think even the mastermind behind you is afraid of the unpredictability of civilization's progress. Who knows if a primitive civilization that was weak and backward a moment ago will use a small team to beat you to the ground in 100 years or even a few decades later? Who knows if a civilization that was a harmless little sheep a second ago will turn into a republic the next second? It's a watchful civilization. With such a super evolution, you can use one hand to toy with the mastermind behind you. For the mastermind, safety is the most important thing. Hide the coordinates of the core space and erase the traces left in the river of fate. The less interference, the better. Sending a person to a foreign world and leaving behind traces is much more dangerous than sending a modified and encrypted memory to a foreign world. But what about the enhancements on my body? What if I have to create a new body every time I transmigrate? The cost of a prime god. Lu Li struggled to explain. Do you think creating your body can be considered cost? Chenong sneered. Don't joke around. For a body like yours, the cost of my laboratory to create is no more than 10 million strings of coins, and this is the price of the Tang dynasty. If it is industrialized, I am confident that it can be reduced to 10,000 strings of coins. In my world, it's probably not much different from the cost of making a pig. I don't know how advanced the technology of the mastermind behind you is, but with the strength it has revealed so far, the value of an ant like you is just a drizzle. It can't be considered a cost at all. Compared to that laughable cost, it should care more about safety, Chen Ong explained. Then what about the Lu Li from before? The Lu Li from before she was teleported? Lu Li asked excitedly. It should have been recycled already. Chen Ong thought. After copying the quantum information spiral, it is natural to eliminate the old information to prevent the program from becoming chaotic. The specific process should be using the mirror copy method. Do you know how DNA is copied? The principle is pretty much the same. Take your quantum information from the past and imprint a mold with the exact opposite corresponding information carrier, which is the anti-quantum information. Then transfer the mold to this world and repeat the process, and a brand new soul will appear. Then erase the old you and transfer the authority in the system to the new you. The whole process is simple and reliable. It is so ancient that primitive people made bronze, and then the ancient people invented printing. This method of copying yin and yang engraving has a long history. I didn't expect that even the prime god behind you is using it. Before Chenong could finish his words, Lu Li was about to break down. He controlled the nutrient solution to form a small person that looked like him. Then, he imprinted it into a ball of nutrient solution, leaving a human-shaped depression. Finally, he released the control over the small person and used the depression to imprint. Sure enough, a small person that looked exactly the same as before appeared in the depression. He looked at the small person that looked exactly like him, and suddenly he completely broke down. This is the truth. So, I is already dead. What is left now is just my shadow, or a shadow that has been copied who knows how many times. Lu Li curled up in the nutrient solution, and his personality was on the verge of breaking down. Then, who am I now? Lu Li's mind was blank. Chapter 369. Lu Li seemed to be erased bit by bit from space, slowly disappearing into the nutrient solution. The wind chasers in the distance also heard the same news in shock. Reincarnated Lu Li has violated the taboo of Lord God Space and is being erased. The wind chasers' team battle score is -1. Luo Xian screamed, Captain! Zhang Xiaofeng was even more confused. How could this be? At this time seemed to stop. Chenong pulled out his hand and turned back time 40 seconds ago, branded Lu Li's quantum information, and then returned to this world. At the moment when time stopped, Chenong linked the quantum information in the void and pressed Lu Li's mold into the quantum tide of the void. Countless entangled quantum states suddenly separated. In the next moment, when time returned to normal, Lu Li's soul appeared in the magical plant nutrient solution, and a body identical to his previous body quickly formed in the nutrient solution. 3 seconds later, Lu Li opened his eyes and panted. In the next moment, his quantum information was erased by Lord God again, and his body collapsed with his eyes wide open. Chenong snorted coldly and repeated the previous replication, creating Lu Li again. Lord God continued to erase. Luo Xian stared dumbfoundedly at the messages in his mind. Reincarnated Lu Li has violated the taboo of Lord God Space. Reincarnator Lu Li has violated the taboo of Lord God Space. Reincarnator Lu Li has violated the taboo of Lord God Space. Such a dozen repetitions made the wind chasers forget their sadness. Zhang Xiaofeng's mouth was wide open. Is Lord God crazy? Or is he infected with a virus? Do we have such a captain that he can erase? In fact, we do. Chenong duplicated more than 100 Lu Li in one breath and let the magical plants create bodies for them. He stood at the side and sneered. Come on, erase. If I can't catch you once, let's see if I can catch your tail more than 100 times. Have you asked for my opinion before erasing in front of me? For the first time, the prime god's obliteration hesitated. A hint buried in Lu Li's soul suddenly erupted, erasing most of the duplicates, leaving only one, Lu Li, and erasing his memory of the past 3 minutes, erasing all the words that Chenong had said to him. Chenong and the Lord's rules exchanged hundreds of terabytes of information, which was equivalent to 200 years' worth of information on the Earth's internet, before they finally reached a compromise. Chenong had no choice but to cut off the Windchaser's memories of this period, completely forgetting the Lord's mistake. Lu Li opened his eyes. He felt that something was wrong, but he could not detect it at all. He thought that it was the discomfort of being in the body of the demonic plant. He smiled and forgot the moment when he was the closest to death and the truth since he entered the main god space. Some parts of your genes are very interesting. They belong to a biological gene fragment with a very strong infectious ability. Most of them are in a hidden state, and only a small part has strengthened your body's ability to sense true energy. According to my analysis, this is an infectious gene that has been modified by a plant's genetic modification method. Holy sh**t. Lu Li was completely shocked. He forgot the doubts he had for a moment and was only terrified by Chun Eng's terrifying scientific insight. Didn't I just eat a few blood bodhi? And I just entered the main god space when the old Windchasers were still alive? Even that was detected. Using this gene as a sample, I've modified your energy-carrying organ and martial bones. Chenong suspended a few seeds that looked like blood vessels in the nutrient solution in front of Lu Li. According to the special gene fragment in your body, the acupoint energy organ has been modified. The main body is located in the spine, and the combat body that will be formed is the Qilin combat body. The most important organ is the Qilin bone, which is also the blood Qilin spine. It is made up of the 5 elements Qilin acupoint, the gold Qilin lung shu acupoint, the fire Qilin heart shu acupoint, the water Qilin kidney shu acupoint, and the other 5 elements Qilin. Finally, they form the energy organ blood Qilin that can replace all the blood in your body. I will now plant the energy organ in your acupoints, the 5 elements Kirin. Considering your condition, it is very easy to promote the growth of the 5 elements Kirin. You just need to stimulate it with the true energy of the 5 elements. When the 5 energies in your chest are completed, the 5 elements Kirin acupoints will be completed. But if you want the 5 elements Kirin acupoints to form a blood Kirin and modify your spine, you must complete the special genes in your body. Is there a way? Just devour the source of the genes in your body. By the way, let me warn you, the special genes are very violent and cruel. If you don't want to be swallowed by the cell consciousness of the genes, you must have a strong will. In your words, it is to break through the god's gate of mind. Chenong smiled ferociously. He looked at Lu Li and said, otherwise, when you are modified by the blood Kirin, your body will break through the body gate and chi gate and swallow your soul. At that time, you will become a Kirin demon. You will be invincible, and you will raise a storm of blood in any world. You will do evil. In order to help you, Chenong said with a smile, I have changed your martial bones into Heaven's Eye. A vertical eye with a golden pupil appeared in front of Lu Li. Looking at the cold and emotionless golden iris in the eye, Lu Li shivered. Heaven's Eye is not an eye, but a mutated organ of the pineal gland. It will replace your pineal gland and modify your brain. The biggest function of Heaven's Eye is to eliminate your emotions and provide you with a hidden personality that is 1,000 times more intelligent and decisive than your current personality. It should be able to control the violent blood of the Kirin. Of course, because martial bones are naturally infectious and do not have strong autonomy. Heavens, I will always cooperate with your martial arts. It is an auxiliary organ of your body. If the blood Kirin modifies you into a Kirin demon battle body, heavens, I will also be infected, and you will die. Of course, at that time, the Kirin demon battle body will be even stronger. An absolutely rational, absolutely intelligent demon Kirin with dark, negative blood might be a good thing. You will be so strong that the world will be shocked. But I will be dead by then. The powerful one is the Kirin demon. Lu Li wanted to stop him. For me, there is no difference. Chenong said with his hands spread out. Isn't it a good thing that the experimental body is stronger? I don't believe you. You originally wanted to modify me into a Kirin demon. You modified my heavens just to make the Kirin demon stronger. Let me out. I don't agree to such a modification. Luli hit the inner wall of the demonic plant in a panic. Such a dangerous modification. I would be crazy to agree to it. Then he grabbed his hair and said in fear, wait. Why did I agree to participate in the modification? Why can't I remember? To get rid of the control of the Lord God. Chenong explained to him in his mind, but unfortunately, this consciousness has been eliminated by the Lord God, so you can't remember why you agreed to the modification. Lu Li, who realized that he had unconsciously become a lab rat, tried to resist, but it was all in vain. 5 seeds intertwined with blood veins drilled into Lu Li's back. He screamed in pain as he felt his spine being struck by an electric current. Chapter 370. Qilin Demon. These 3 words made Lu Li tremble. This was a ruthless thing that even a hero like Nie Feng had suffered setback. However, he didn't even have the chance to express his objection before he was transformed by Chenong. While enduring the pain in his spine that felt like it was being roasted by a soldering iron, he also clearly felt his skin being cut open and the demon plant's tentacles separating his back to protect his spine muscles. Lu Li felt like he was going crazy. His nerves were becoming more and more sensitive under the stimulation of the demon plant's radiation. Even his internal organs were pulled out of his body through a Y-shaped cut on his chest. Your alveoli are developing very well, Chenong commented. Because of the efficiency of breathing, most of the alveoli in a normal person are in a state of atrophy. However, your alveoli are not only fully developed, but they're also developing into a state of mutation. He filled Lu Li's alveoli with a large amount of nutrient solution. Lu Li opened his eyes and saw that his lungs had expanded to the size of a person. He was almost scared out of his wits. Not many people in this world could see their internal organs floating in front of them, connected by blood vessels to carry out extracorporeal circulation. However, Lu Li was lucky enough to be the first person in the Tang Empire. However, he didn't seem to be happy about it. Although the process of training your lungs must be very hard, unfortunately, an organ with low efficiency like the lungs has no value. Logically speaking, I should remove it to save space for your body to be modified. However, considering your mental capacity, I'll reluctantly keep it. When the Qilin demonic blood circulates, it will infect 5 important organs. The heart, which is the engine of the blood, the kidney, which is the purifying machine, the liver, which is the detoxifying machine, the lungs, which is the oxygen generator, and the spleen, which is the energy charging machine. These are the main functions of the 5 internal organs in your body's biological circulation system. They are also the main places where the Qilin demon blood deeply interacts with the body's organs. But congratulations, from today on, you won't have to use these messy functions anymore. The Kirin demon blood is very powerful. It contains energy, mind, matter, and information. It is a complete system of life. Congratulations. The rest of your body is just a shell that carries the Kirin demon blood. As long as you have the blood Kirin spine, it doesn't matter if you lose it. Even if your brain is smashed, even if all the bones in your body are shattered, as long as you still have blood, you can fight to the end. The demonic will in your blood can exert a strong and firm will to fight. You can control your body and fight until the end of time. You can kill your enemies. I was already dead at that time. It's the Qilin demon that's going to continue fighting, right? Lu Li's eyes were wide open. Her angry eyes seemed to want to send the roar in her heart to Chenong. You are obviously using me as a carrier for the Qilin demon, and a cheap one at that. Don't worry. Looking at Lu Li's angry eyes, Chenong smiled and said, the Qilin demonic blood replicates your genes, body condition, quantum information, and all other data. As long as it devours the energy, it can recreate your body. Even your memories won't disappear. You'll just lose the memories of the period when you didn't have a brain. My body? You added the words my body after hesitating for half a second, didn't you? What you want to say is that the Qilin demon blood will create me, right? It is simply another life parasitizing in my body, right? Without lungs, Luli couldn't make a sound even if she wanted to shout. She could only stare at Chenong. However, Chenong didn't take his gaze seriously at all. Instead, he happily praised, "There's no need for oxygen, no need for brains, no need for nutrition, and no need for purification. The Chilean demonic blood is a part of a perfect life." When he said this, he paused subtly again. Even if it is a failed product, it is still a wonderful existence. In the future, if you fail and become a Chilean demon, you will also have a very strong fighting power. You can use the demon blood to demonize and infect the whole biosphere, even non-living things. As long as there is a living thing with blood, it will be infected by the demon blood very quickly and become a part of you. The demon blood looks like blood on the surface, but it is actually a kind of demonic creature that coexists with you. It only has a confused, collective consciousness of the cells. With a host like you providing a more complete intelligence, you will be able to combine into one. Luli watched as his lungs were covered by a kind of silver-white liquid and transformed into a string of crystal-like bubbles. His heart was wrapped by bright, flame-like blood. His liver oozed out green mucus and directly turned into a half-plant and half-organ. His kidneys were like two deep black holes. His eyes were dizzy. He couldn't believe that this was his own body. Because the Chilean demon blood needs to be supplemented with genes and stimulated by a large amount of energy, it is still in its original state of the 5 elements Chilean blood. It is attached to these modified organs and exerts its effect. The fire Chilean blood in the ventricle can give your true energy explosive power like burning. The gold Chilean blood in the lungs can make your true energy interfere with matter to a very strong level. In layman's terms, the heart fire blood can make you burst out and instantly increase your fighting power by more than 10 times. The gold lung blood can make your true energy condense and greatly increase your destructive power. The water blood in the kidney of the water Chilean blood can store true energy hundreds of times more than the Dantian. The wood blood in the liver has a strong recovery ability. The earth blood in the spleen can dissolve foreign energy and absorb other energy. It has the characteristics of life and true energy. The 5 elements Chilean blood is attached to the 5 internal organs to exert its function. However, the organs that produce the 5 elements Chilean blood are not the 5 internal organs, but the spine. In the Chilean Wushu acupoint of the spine, there are primitive energy organs, and the 5 elements Chilean blood is produced by them. In other words, as long as the spine is intact, even if the 5 internal organs are shattered, they can still be reborn. Luli watched as these strange organs of sky blue, gold red, brown yellow, silver white, and dark black were put into his chest and abdomen. The Y-shaped incision quickly healed under the stimulation of the wood Chilean blood. He didn't know what expression to make, but he could only pretend to be broken. However, as if he didn't see it, Chenong took off his right eyeball, hooked out the brain's pineal gland, and continued to modify it. The whole scene was like a Frankenstein dissecting a victim or a forensic doctor performing an autopsy. However, if the magical plants were also put in the camera, it would have a strange feeling like a horror movie. At the end of the great success, Luli's face was only left with a dull look, and the light of life in his eyes seemed to be fading little by little. Too weak. Chenong shook his head and said, "This reincarnator of the Master God space is no good. Just a little stimulation, and he can't stand it. Really, he doesn't have the bearing of those reincarnators who are hovering between life and death." Updating Lu Li's quantum information, Chenong waited for Lu Li's consciousness to recover while admiring his experimental records. Experimental subject number 1 human body modification record. Chenong summarized the failures in the experiment, and at the same time, constantly improved the experimental methods, including the test subject's mental endurance has collapsed, and the nerve-sensitive surgery can be modified to be carried out at the end. Cancel the mental sharpening of the mental illusion during the experiment, and no longer increase or interfere with the test subject's mental sensing ability. To be continued. Chapter 371. Luli opened his eyes and struggled to get up. He was so nervous that he even forgot to breathe. His spine was arched and his muscles were tight, as if he could draw his sword at any time. However, when he looked at the figure with his back facing him, there was only unforgettable fear in his eyes. He didn't dare to attack. If someone could see the state of his muscles under his skin, they would realize that all his preparations were to escape at the first moment. He would bounce up like a spring, fly 4 to 5 kilometers away, and then escape through the river. However, Chenong only said one sentence with his back facing him, "Sit down." Then he sat down obediently, even losing the courage to escape. The strengthening of acupoints and martial bones has been completed. You should be able to learn to use them easily, but there's a problem with the strengthening of the martial soul. It needs some stimulation to germinate from the form of a seed. You need to adapt to your current body, and at the same time promote the germination of the martial soul seed. About 10 kilometers upstream from this river, there's an old Taoist who came to discuss Tao with me. Go shave his beard and invite him over. Luli nodded vigorously and didn't dare to have any objections. Chenong sighed in his heart. Am I so scary? I didn't give him any discount on what I promised him. The same kind of enhancement would require him to risk his life dozens of times in order to barely obtain it. Moreover, it would be a weakened version of the enhancement with serious backdoors. I didn't give him any discount at all. It was a complete enhancement without any backdoors. Instead, he was unable to accept it. Could it really be like that? Humans are all cheap wretches, and they don't like the pie that falls from the sky. I want to play with him until he wants to die, torment him until he wants to die, trample on him, ravage him, and finally give him the same thing. Only then will he be grateful? He pointed at the river, and the river water immediately condensed into an ice boat, floating on the water. Chenong said, "Go." Luli carefully stepped onto the ice boat. She activated her Jinqi slightly, and the boat shot upstream like an arrow that had just left the bow. It broke through the waves of the river, leaving behind a silvery white waterline as it disappeared into the mist above the river. Chun-Ong stood on the tentacle of the demonic plant, looking at the rising moon in the sky. His figure seemed real and illusory, as if he had disappeared in this time and space. Ning Daoqi had already arrived at Jiangdu. The night was gradually enveloping the Yangtze River. He was less than 30 miles away from Linjiang Palace where Yang Guang was. The old Taoist sat on the bow of the boat. The willows on both sides of the river passed by the boat. These were all planted by Yang Guang, and now they were like a curtain. Ning Daoqi sighed. Yang Guang's opening of the canal caused excessive servitude and caused the people in Jiangnan and Jiangbei to be destroyed, but he was also a great talent. It was a great achievement to communicate between the north and the south. But why do you let people plant countless willows on both sides? For your own selfishness, just for the sake of enjoying the willow trees on both sides of the boat. How many people have been buried on both sides? Is there no reason for the common people to hate his tyranny? Yang was to be the water and water. A long laugh made Ning Daoqi raise his head. He vaguely saw someone on a white boat on the other side of the river. The sound came from that direction. Oh, fellow Taoist, what do you mean? Ning Daoqi saw that the person was wearing a Taoist robe and was standing on an ice ship. I said the reason why willows are planted on both sides of the river is to prevent soil erosion. The person smiled and said, the canal's embankment is eroded by the river water. If we don't plant willows, in less than 10 years, the river will probably be silted up and the soil and water on both sides will not be able to be preserved. Yang Guang didn't plant willows for the sake of the scenery on both sides, but to protect the river. Ning Daoqi was not embarrassed at all. Instead, he reflected on himself honestly. Is that so? This old Taoist is also echoing the views of others. His eyes were so clear that he didn't look like an old man at all. Looking at Lu Li Xian's unwilling expression, he smiled and said, fellow cultivator, you didn't come here just to see this old man, right? That's right. Lu Li smiled bitterly. An evil person forced me to come here to see your Sans Ho 8 pounces. He took out his hands from his sleeves, looked at his perfect hands that didn't have any calluses, sighed, and slowly pressed them into the air. The true chi that was condensed to the extreme was almost tangible. Luli could clearly feel that he was different from before. In his body, there seemed to be endless energy that supported the continuous rise of his true chi. The divine art of uniformity that he cultivated was like the first time he condensed true chi. His inner energy was like a part of his body, containing his will and belief, using his will to gather his will, using his will to control his chi, using his chi to train his spirit. For the first time, his chi, and his spirit were so highly unified. It drove his aura to continuously rise like the clouds in the sky, and it made people's hearts cold. Ning Daoqi was shocked by this endless rising will and true chi, but he heard Lu Li sigh and say, "Until today, I finally know what is true uniformity." In an instant, Lu Li made his move, and it was earth-shattering. One thought, one moment of God. 110 miles, one thunder. The divine art of uniformity that came from the Wenrian world drew a dazzling and shocking attack in front of Ning Daoqi. The abundant true chi was mixed with the roar of the 5 qilins. Sharp, heavy, blazing, insidious, and long. The 5 special true chi characteristics were mixed as one. It was hard and soft at the same time, and it went straight for Ning Daoqi's chest. I feel that this attack of mine has made me a deity. Lu Li's mind seemed to be divided into two. One was absolutely rational, and it had endless martial arts wisdom. It controlled his body and true chi with a high degree of coordination, and it made such a brilliant attack. The other Lu Li complained in his mind. Time seemed to not exist for Lu Li's two minds. Lu Li, who was watching from the side, watched his body step on the water and walked toward Ning Daoqi step by step. The overflowing true chi froze the river surface. The distance between the two of them was a few hundred meters, but Lu Li's body seemed to not feel the distance at all, and he slid across the water's surface in an instant. The true chi affected the function of the whole body, and it attracted the energy of the whole heaven and earth. When this attack was made, it was as if the world where Ning Daoqi was had turned upside down. So this is the state of uniformity, knowing what is impossible. Feeling the attack that he had condensed all of his essence, chi, and spirit, Lu Li sighed. After the transformation, the highest state of the divine art that was originally unattainable had actually succeeded just like that. Facing Lu Li's all-out attack that touched the divine level, Ning Daoqi seemed to have fallen into a dead end. Chapter 372. All of this happened in the blink of an eye, but Lu Li suddenly realized that he had lost track of Ning Daoqi. Even though his spirit had completely locked onto Ning Daoqi's location, even though the entire world was on his side and was turning against Ning Daoqi. However, the old man standing in front of him had mysteriously disappeared just like that. However, Lu Li, who quickly came back to his senses, reacted immediately. He protected his vital parts and turned around to see Ning Daoqi standing on the ice ship that he came from, looking at him. What's going on? Lu Li's heart was in turmoil. Is this the power to stop time? Looking at the shadow behind Ning Daoqi that was exactly the same as him, he linked it to the relevant information of the universe team. The specimen called the substitute that Chun-Ong mentioned could face the strongest attack of all time and remain unscathed, to the point where Lu Li couldn't even notice it. It seemed like there was only one answer that made Lu Li shudder. The strongest substitute power, time stop? Why would God? Why would he allow such a cheat-like method? Why would a substitute appear so easily? While Lu Li's normal personality was still trying to deny it, his rational personality had already found the answer. The two personalities who were connected instantly shared their thoughts. In the memory of the rational personality, the memory of the previous moment was like a fixed picture in his mind. He would never miss out on any details. However, the rational personality realized that he had lost a second of his memory. The shape of the ripples in the water, the clouds in the sky, the moving objects around, all the trajectories except for Ning Daoqi had deviated by 1 second. Ignoring Ning Daoqi, the factor that couldn't be calculated, all the frames of reference were faster than the set trajectory by a certain amount of time. It was exactly 1 second according to the human concept. They jumped from a state of the previous second to the state of the next second. It was like someone pressed fast forward. The image skipped 1 second and jumped to the next. No, this was an inference using himself as the frame of reference. If you were to look at it from a relatively objective point of view in the material world, he had actually disappeared from the timeline for 1 second. My 1 minute only has 59 wonders, Luli said as he came to a realization. It's definitely not because I've lost the memory of the previous second, because my body is still in the state of the previous second. It's definitely not because I've been completely controlled for 1 second, because Ning Daoqi could directly subdue me. And now, he only left his original position the second I disappear from this world. Although this is extremely absurd, this is the only explanation. I disappeared from this world for a second. One of my seconds was stolen. This is the ability of Ning Daoqi's substitute. According to that scary rumor, he might have stolen the time of my existence. If that's the case, his minute will definitely be 61 seconds. The rational personality eliminated all the possible answers for Lu Li and gave her the most likely choice. But now, Lu Li was in a desperate situation. He was confident that he was not inferior to Ning Daoqi in martial arts, but facing an opponent who had 2 seconds more time than him, as long as he could drag it out until the next time he lost his sense of time, Lu Li would definitely lose. Ning Daoqi might have let go of the last chance because he was not familiar with the substitute's ability. However, with their combat intelligence, the same mistake would not happen twice. And now, there were only 59 seconds left before the next time he lost his sense of time. Lu Li definitely could not drag it out until the next time he lost his sense of time. The short 59 seconds could pass at any time. Lu Li's original personality might not be able to think of a solution, but the rational personality grasped the key very quickly. The faster he killed Ning Daoqi, the better it would be for their side. Lu Li felt that his blood was burning. The 5 acupuncture points on his spine were slightly swollen, and the 5 elements of Qilin blood in his body were sucking the energy crazily. The silver-white, golden Qilin blood blended into his vital qi, followed Lu Li's spreading vital qi aura, and blended into the space within a radius of a few hundred feet, drawing the energy of the whole world. The pitch-black water Qilin blood was like a black hole, swallowing all the energy that Lu Li could come into contact with. He was like a black hole of humanity, containing the whole world. The yellow-brown earth Qilin vital qi and the heavy green with Qilin vital qi strengthened Lu Li's weak body to the limit. Even though he was carrying the power to tear the world apart, it only made his bones and muscles break and shatter. As a material structure, they were completely destroyed under such a degree of overload. However, with the support of the wood and earth vital qi, miraculously, they did not completely collapse. Lu Li's consciousness was suffering a pain that was thousands of times worse than death by 1,000 cuts at that moment. This kind of horrifying torture made him faint instantly, but he would wake up the next moment, and this repeated for dozens of times. However, under the stubborn persistence of the rational personality, Lu Li did not even have the right to choose death. He could only curse the mad scientist who modified him in his heart. Not far away from here, Chenong suddenly came to a realization and scratched his hair, saying, "I seem to have forgotten to strengthen his weak body. A body of that quality can't withstand the madness of the 5 elements Qilin. If he wants to strengthen himself with the Qilin blood, it will take about a day to be able to modify a body that can be used. Forget it. Who cares? He won't die anyway." 5 directions Qilin Genesis. In the area covered by the vital qi, the 5 directions Qilin energy destroyed all the relationships of space, energy, light, and structure. It separated the section of the river, including Ning Daoqi and Lu Li, from the heaven and earth, and redefined its order. The condensed 5 directions, 5 elements, true qi grabbed Ning Daoqi's chest. The blazing will of the Qilin's demonic thoughts was deeply contained in the vital qi, and the absolute rational martial arts wisdom was carried out from beginning to end. To put it bluntly, Lu Li's response was simple. By relying on the near-limitless endurance of her modified body and the mutual promotion and restraint of the 5 elements to create a world, she drew tremendous void mass and energy and crushed the space along with herself. At this time, only 13 seconds had passed. Ning Daoqi still had 46 seconds to endure. The crushing of the space started from the outside and approached the center. Ning Daoqi and Lu Li were right in the center. The first thing they lost was the way of retreat. One of them was fierce in the 5 qi. The Qilin blood was boiling, and his combat power was constantly rising at every moment. The other one was like a willow catkin in the wind, stubbornly holding on, displaying the essence of the 8 punches of Sanzhou to the fullest. However, Ning Daoqi was about to reach his limit. The pressure exerted by the crazy state of Lu Li's incarnation was approaching the limit of what he could endure. Facing the violent 5 qi brought by Lu Li from the front, and the collapsed space behind him blocking his way of retreat, Ning Daoqi really exerted his lifetime's potential. He gritted his teeth bit by bit until the critical point of time. The vital qi carried the pure will in Lu Li's shell and rushed out of her body. The 5 elements, Qilin blood, pulled the 5 glowing energy organ acupoints out of the shell. The 5 types of circulating Qilin blood spread into the field of vital qi, just like a circulating world and life. Lu Li felt that he had lost a layer of restraint and had come into contact with a wider world. Using the 5-colored blood as the foundation, his Zhen qi turned into mist and hid in the air. The tangible blood carried a huge amount of void energy, as if this independent world was Lu Li's body. However, his body was frozen on the spot, like a gray shell. In the next second, Lu Li disappeared. His body was like a pale shadow. It was independent from the world and couldn't feel or interfere with reality. Ning Daoqi also couldn't touch this shadow of time and space that didn't exist. Lu Li's will in the space stopped. Lu Li's body on the river didn't exist in this time and space. Ning Daoqi was finally able to dodge Lu Li's storm-like attacks and get out from the flaw. He put his palm in front of Lu Li and planned to control him as soon as Lu Li's time was over. To be continued. Chapter 373. At the moment when Lu Li recovered from the stagnation of time, Ning Daoqi's palms were already on his body. However, the stiff and withered feeling that came from Lu Li's skin made Ning Daoqi quickly withdraw. But it was too late. The Kylan's blood gushed out from the void along with Lu Li's consciousness and returned to his original body in an instant. The body that was as stiff as dead was not seriously damaged, at least not to the extent of giving up. In contrast, the Kylan's madness of 5 elements might have damaged his body more seriously. But Lu Li still forced himself to make a move. He was like a cold god occupying a fragile carrier. The vital qi of 5 elements were bundled together and held in his right palm. Like a blade, it slashed across Ning Daoqi's chin. His white beard fell with the wind. Ning Daoqi wiped his smooth chin with a bitter smile and sighed. I lost this round. It was just a fluke. Lu Li cupped his fist and said expressionlessly. He stood on the river with his hands behind his back. The indifference in his eyes gradually disappeared, and his body was filled with vitality. He was not as lifeless as before. Ning Daoqi was relieved and said with concern, You seem to be in a strange state of mind just now, but from what I saw, you looked like a selfless and emotionless god of Taoism. Lu Li clumsily dragged his broken body and said to an empty place in front of Ning Daoqi, I did use a trick in this battle. In that state, I was emotionless and selfless, and I couldn't control what I would do. With all due respect, Ning Daoqi sighed and said, This is not a good thing for you, my friend. Although being emotionless and selfless is noble and almost like a god, there are 5 primordial spirit worries: lack of emotion, lack of thought, and purity. If you are in this state for a long time, you will naturally have weak emotions, less thoughts, and a cold heart. You may even become extremely egoistic and be infected with the indifferent demonic thoughts of plucking a hair for the benefit of the world. Although I said this because I am not familiar with you, it is not because I am scheming. Please listen to me, my friend. Don't use it unless it is a life and death situation. It's not that I don't want to listen to your kind advice. Luli smiled bitterly and said, "There's actually another story behind this. I have no choice but to drink poison to quench my thirst." The bitterness on his face could be scraped off. How could Luli not know how terrifying the heavens I Marshall Bone was? But in this short period of time, the Cheelant's blood had gone berserk, and the powerful self-will contained in the blood had almost completely eroded him. He could even feel that the cell's will, which was as ferocious as the prehistoric times, was using him as a template to imitate and learn the human way of thinking. He wasn't sure if a consciousness similar to his own would be born in his blood if this continued. Luli even wanted to smile and say to the old man in front of him that if it were not for him holding them back, the extremely cruel and violent consciousness in his blood would have really eaten him in a few seconds. It was definitely eaten in the literal sense. The hunger that came from Luli's blood just now was definitely an evil feeling that wanted to devour Ning Daoqi, including his skin and bones and even a few pieces of his soul. At that time, if it were not for the heavens Luli's absolute rational and ruthless will to suppress them, Ning Daoqi would have probably seen the horrifying scene of Luli's blood leaving his body and pouncing on him, devouring everything. With the predatory instinct of the Cheelant's demonic consciousness that came from its genes, Luli felt that Ning Daoqi would not be able to last more than 3 seconds. Even the victory just now was because of some kind of response that the Cheelant's demonic consciousness had instinctively produced. They reacted as if they could predict the future. Only then did the heavens Luli's supreme wisdom decipher the information contained in the blood and peek into a trace of the future. No one would have thought that during that period of time, Luli's greatest enemy and the most terrifying danger was not Ning Daoqi, but the Cheelant's demonic consciousness in the space-time within his body. What was even more terrifying was that Luli realized that after this oppression, the Cheelant's demonic consciousness had actually absorbed a part of the advantages of the Heaven's personality that was suppressing it. The feeling that it gave him was not only madness and ruthlessness that devoured everything, but also a hint of coldness and extreme coldness. I'm really not confident that I can survive the backlash of the Cheelant's demonic blood again. I'm afraid that when that time comes, that terrifying consciousness will devour my existence and turn me into a brand new Luli. Luli was very hesitant in his heart. He even had a demonic barrier that hated the world. What kind of madness did I have to agree to do such a terrifying transformation with that person? This is even worse than a god. At least a god's strengthening won't turn me into a demon. I can even become the nourishment for a certain consciousness after strengthening. Luli's eyes were filled with despair. Ning Daoqi, who was at the side, did not dare to go up and say anything. However, when Luli was thinking about this, in the most secret part of his heart, a part of himself that he had forgotten seemed to be sneering coldly. Is that so? Ning Daoqi looked at Luli's state of despair, as if he would choose to leave the world at any time. Although he did not know what he had experienced, it must have been an extremely painful past where he could not choose. Ning Daoqi gave up on trying to persuade him and understood his difficulties. Just as Luli's was about to collapse, his gaze suddenly became fierce and crazy. There was also a hint of extreme selfishness and coldness in the deepest part of his eyes. When Ning Daoqi saw such a gaze, he felt his hair stand on end. He had never seen such a demonic gaze in his life. It was a gaze that seemed to belong to an ancient ferocious beast and a world-destroying demon god. Ja! Ning Daoqi shouted, and the mantra that was infused with all his Taoist cultivation rang in Luli's mind with Ning Daoqi's calmness and attitude of letting go of all enmity and wariness. At that moment, to avoid triggering Luli's defensive instincts, Ning Daoqi basically handed his life over to Luli, who might go mad at any moment. As long as Luli released his true qi, he could end the life of the strongest in the Central Plains. If that were not the case, It would have been impossible for him to awaken Lu Li's consciousness and force him to fuse with heaven's primordial spirit to suppress Qilin's demonic thoughts to protect himself. Lu Li's eyes finally regained clarity. At that moment, he was in a state of absolute rationality. He gave up on all emotions and distracting thoughts and said to Ning Daoqi, "Fellow Taoist, you should already know what sort of terrifying existence is sealed in my body. Once it loses control, it might bring about a monstrous, demonic calamity in this world and completely bury this world." In just a moment, he was forced to reveal his emotions, and he could not even maintain his state of absolute rationality. I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect that Qilin demon would come so soon. It's actually so terrifying. No, it should be because my will is too weak, and I gave it the chance to grow and perfect itself. Now, I can barely suppress it like this, but I can't stop it from growing every minute and every second. There's only one person who can save me. Save this world. I will seal my 5 senses and completely silence my consciousness. I hope I can buy myself some time. Fellow Taoist, please bring my body to the man under the tree downstream. Right now, only he can suppress Qilin demon. At this point, Lu Li smiled bitterly. This can be considered as completing the mission he gave me. Ning Daoqi said with a serious expression, "I understand. I won't let you down." To be continued. Chapter 374. Ning Daoqi was still worried that the location Lu Li mentioned was too vague. Under the big tree downstream was not a clear direction. If there was any delay, the demon Kirin inside Lu Li's body would be born, and it would be a disaster for the world. However, as he drove the boat, he soon understood why Lu Li only said under the big tree. This big tree was too obvious, and it was impossible to ignore it. From the small boat, he could see the canopy-like shade of the trees in the distance. In the curtain of night, it was like a resplendent silk curtain. Countless flowing, brilliant veins supported the extremely beautiful canopy, like clouds or smoke. This was a sacred tree that should not have appeared in this world. Ning Daoqi took a boat to the bottom of the tree. Its canopy covered a huge area with a radius of 1 kilometer, and even spanned across the 2 sides of the Yangtze River. It covered a part of the starry sky above the heads of the passing boats. The veins of the branches were flowing with radiant energy, and the leaves were hanging like stars, dangerous and beautiful. In Ning Daoqi's senses, this huge tree was flowing with natural energy that was as vigorous and thick as the veins of the earth. The ground under his feet, the canopy above his head, and the aerial roots hanging down from the sky were all filled with a vivid and dangerous aura. Before Ning Daoqi got off the boat and went ashore, the aerial root floating above the river started to move like a snake and interweaved into a soft nest in front of Ning Daoqi. Several finger-thick roots even wrapped around Lu Li's body. Ning Daoqi did not know if he should stop it or wait and see. He saw the aerial root lift Lu Li's body and put her on the soft nest. A few crystal-like blood vessels came out from between Lu Li's eyebrows and intertwined with the golden veins of the sacred tree's aerial root. Suddenly, her body relaxed, and she completely lost her life. Ning Daoqi turned pale with fright. He didn't know if he should cut off this strange meridian or not. Then, he saw another aerial root in front of him. It also had the same golden meridian and was floating in front of his chest in a friendly manner. Ning Daoqi suddenly understood. He carefully extended his finger over. The golden meridian fused into his fingertip and connected with his nerves. "Hello, I'm Eva." Ning Daoqi felt that someone was greeting him. "I'm Ning Daoqi. I was asked to send him here to find a person under the tree. I wonder where he is now." Ning Daoqi was a little confused. He felt that everything that had happened today was beyond the understanding of an old man who had spent most of his life in the mortal world. However, he deduced that this mysterious consciousness should be related to the person under the tree. "Are you looking for Dr. Chenong? He's currently operating on someone else, so it might not be convenient for him to see you." Ning Daoqi did not know what the operation was, but he could understand the latter part. He asked, "But this Taoist brother is in danger. He said that only the man under the tree can save him. There should be a problem with the Cheelant's demonic consciousness in his body. I can help. I'm currently awakening his consciousness and sharing the pressure from the Cheelant's demonic consciousness. As he spoke, Ning Daoqi felt a sleeping consciousness, as well as a black thought that was sealed by that consciousness. This was the closest Ning Daoqi had come into contact with the Cheelant demon. Although it was not very active, Ning Daoqi could still feel the instinctive fear that humans had when facing their natural enemy. He could also feel the primitive bestiality in its consciousness, which was filled with cruelty, brutality, and savagery. It was as if he could see the cruelty and selfishness of the beginning of life. The Cheelant demon is very scary. It is the incarnation of the most primitive nature of all intelligent creatures. It condenses the most basic desire of life to survive, and at the same time, it extends this obsession to the negative side. Because it comes from all kinds of beasts, it contains the traces of evolution of all life, and at the same time, it represents endless evolution, so it is called the Cheelant. The Cheelant symbolizes the great power and potential that keeps evolving and absorbing the advantages of endless life. It is the king of all beasts, but at the same time, because of its extreme selfishness, it wants to devour and possess everything, and it hates everything except itself. This selfishness that comes from the origin of its genes is also called a demon. The Cheelant demon devours and possesses everything, becoming the only path of evolution and obsession. My master created it, but he was also surprised by its greed and selfishness, so he sealed it in the body of Lu Li, who was the source of the sample. He hoped to get some interesting results. Eva slowly awakened Lu Li's consciousness and explained to them at the same time. He didn't tell me any of this. Lu Li, who had just woken up, said angrily, he only told me that the enhanced power was very powerful, but he didn't tell me that it would be this dangerous. He told me that it was safe. Master doesn't need to tell you this. No matter how dangerous the Cheelant demon is to you, or even to me, it is just a harmless test subject to Master. No one can call themselves a demon in front of Master. To the Supreme Master, all dangerous demons are just his slaves. He is the demon of all demons, our Master. Eva revealed coldly. Primordial Sky Demon, you tricked me. Lu Li was almost going crazy. Primordial Sky Demon? Ning Daoqi's body trembled slightly. He suppressed the shock in his heart and asked, is the Primordial Sky Demon the one who planted the Cheelant demon in Lu Li's body? Lu Li asked me to bring you to him. That's right. Other than the Primordial Sky Demon, who created such a terrifying existence, who else can help Lu Li suppress the growth of the Cheelant demon? Then, Eva, who are you? Ning Daoqi turned around and asked. You are the consciousness of the demon plant. Lu Li vaguely guessed something. Eva replied, yes. In order to create a source of soldiers for their race in this world, and to defeat Nuwa and the rest of the dead, my master specially inspired my self-awareness and named me Divine Tree Eva. I have the great mission of infecting all plant life and unifying the consciousness of all living beings on a planet. Don't tell me you have weird neural vines growing out of your body like mine. Lu Li exclaimed in horror. I saw it just now. Crystalline neural tissue is emerging from my blood. Those are not your nerves. Your nerves are in your body. Those are the nerves of the Cheelant demon. The Cheelant demon is the master of the blood in your body. I just borrowed its consciousness to pull you into this world. Moreover, neural vines are too primitive. Although Master gave me this ability, it is only a substitute in the early stages. Eva replied, so, how are you going to carry out the order that Chanong gave you? Lu Li asked curiously. Chapter 375. I will produce a consciousness virus that uses the tiniest bacteria as a carrier. As long as one is infected with the bacteria, my consciousness will invade their body and coexist with it. It will stimulate the energy of the living cells and make all the creatures on this planet a part of me. Then I will collapse my self-consciousness and pull all the self-consciousness into the emerald dream that you are in. Master will control, modify, and realize the world in Master's heart. Eva said fervently. Ning Daoqi looked up and saw a blurry shadow of earth in this world. He did not know what it was, but he could feel that what Eva said was indeed from the bottom of her heart. He could feel that creatures like Eva could not hide their thoughts, or rather, they did not hide their consciousness at all. Their thoughts were transparent. A kind of fear rose in Ning Daoqi's heart. At this moment, he forgot about Yangguang and the Bulsh *T of the righteous imperial court. There was only one thought in his mind, to stop the primordial demon's terrifying plan, to give everything he had. Is the one controlling Yangguang also the primordial demon? Ning Daoqi asked with a trembling voice. Yes, Yangguang is the great demon. According to his original plan, he was going to preserve the self-consciousness of the creatures on this planet. He was going to build an empire to unify the planet and crush all the rebellious ones. But Master woke up from his slumber. Master is so strong. Master is so great. How would he have time to play with you guys? This world can only have one will, and that is the will of the primordial demon. This world can only have one master, and that is the great primordial demon. Eva's consciousness was extremely fanatical. The kind of fearless obedience to a person almost infected Lu Li and Ning Daoqi. She said sincerely, and so, the great skyscraper demon Yangguang died. His Majesty, the primordial demon, created me and gave me the great mission of controlling this planet for him. Now there are 800 million mortal monkeys on this planet. Among them, only China has 100 million mortals. The other places are all monkeys. I'll tire half of the monkeys to death, make His Majesty the primordial demon's royal carriage, brainwash 100 million mortals to become His Majesty's warriors, cross the infinite space and time, go to the world of Nuwa and the other dead species, and kill all of them. Eva, I want to dedicate everything to the great cause of His Majesty, the primeval demon. Eva's voice was as innocent as a little girl's, but she had said such terrifying things. Her extremely fanatical consciousness made Ning Daoqi and Lu Li tremble. Eva, wake up first, Lu Li reminded her in a frightened voice. He deliberately ignored the reminder from the Lord God beside his ear. Help the primordial demon control the Tang Dynasty world, create the heavenly devil star carriage, go to the mysterious divine weapon world, and slaughter the Protoss. The reward for killing Pangu and Nuwa. We also want to fight for the great cause of His Majesty, the Sky Devil. Lu Li lied. I wonder what you're going to do, Eva? Operation? Eva, who had been in contact with the consciousness of plants since she was born, believed them very naively. She asked in confusion, what is action? As long as I nurture the Eva's source body left behind by Master in my body, it will bear the fruit of the sacred tree. When the fruit ripens, Eva's spores will burst out, and it will only take 3 days to infect this planet. What if an enemy wants to destroy it? Lu Li pretended to be worried. Who dares? Eva, I'll blast them to smithereens. Eva's consciousness was enraged. There are many bad people in this world, and there are many people who are not willing to obey His Majesty, the Sky Devil. You have to be careful. Don't you think so, fellow Ning? In order to win Eva's trust, Lu Li did not even hesitate to drag Ning Daoqi, who was next to her, into the same boat. Ning Daoqi had never lied in his life. At this time, for the sake of the world, he had to say with a red face, yes, Brother Lu is right. You're right, Eva thought and said, why don't you come and protect the fruit of the sacred tree? Don't let it be eaten before it explodes. Especially you. You have to control the Qilin demon. If the Qilin demon eats it, this plan will be over. When will the fruit of the sacred tree ripen? Lu Li seemed to be very enthusiastic and asked, we can come at the right time. 3 more months. Eva said dejectedly, if I can't control this world for His Majesty, Eva is useless. Lu Li and Ning Daoqi secretly heaved a sigh of relief. There was still time, but they immediately felt the urgency. Lu Li looked at the Qilin demon that was being suppressed by her consciousness and asked Eva, It's too dangerous for the Qilin demon to be in my body. It can control me at any time and ruin your plan. Can you remove it from my body or seal it or something? Sure. Eva's answer made Luli happy. But soon, her next words made Luli feel like she had fallen into an ice cave. I'll try my best to shoot you into the sun and help the Qilin demon devour the sun. It will take at least 5,000 years. Then it won't be a hindrance to His Majesty, the primordial demon's great cause. Eva said proudly. Then I'll be dead. Luli retorted loudly. What is death? Is death that scary? Eva asked innocently. Luli said helplessly. If you know to kill the Celestials, why don't you know about death? Kill the Celestials. His Majesty, the primordial demon, is eternal. Eva didn't understand the meaning of death at all. She only knew to shout excitedly, and her consciousness was trembling. Luli tried to explain for a long time before Eva understood what he meant. You want to be separated from the Qilin demon. Eva can't do it. Eva floated around in the space of consciousness indifferently. Luli's eyes widened. How is that possible? Didn't you do my surgery? You're the only one that Master did it himself. The Qilin demon is essentially an existence of the same level as me. I can't create it. Only Master could combine the magical gene in your body in such a short time, reverse the source, and create such a terrifying existence like the Qilin demon. It is embedded in your nature, and it is destined to replace you. Eva explained, the Qilin demon is the only existence on this planet that can restrain me. We are two sides of the same concept. I share the same life. Communication, exchange, and the source. It is the source of selfishness, greed, and extreme ego of life. If I am the first sacrifice of life, it is the greed of life's nature. In a sense, it is destined to devour me. Master's wisdom allowed him to see the essence of one is everything. Everything is one in the great Tao. He split this path into two and created me and the Qilin demon. We promote each other and restrain each other. As long as the Qilin demon devours me, it can devour the entire universe and become the ultimate. One is everything. It's from one to everything. In other words, it's the path of devouring everything and merging them into one. Ning Daoqi said thoughtfully, this should represent the ambition and essence of the Qilin demon to devour everything to achieve the one and only. Everything is one, so it should be you. Luli came to a realization and said, it contains the consciousness of all living beings and becomes that one. One is extremely selfish. One is absolutely selfless. One represents itself to devour everything, and one gives up on itself to contain all living beings. So, it is the Qilin demon, and you are the divine tree. That's right. If the Qilin demon devours me, it is equivalent to completing itself. It will be millions of times stronger. By then, as long as it can sense the existence, it can devour it instantly. It will definitely be able to replace the universe with itself, Eva said nonchalantly. Hearing this terrifying news, Ning Daoqi could only smile bitterly and say, life is so difficult. You are the shell of the Qilin demon. Eva patted Lu Li's head and said, you are so useless. You don't seem to be a threat. I'm so useless. I'm sorry. Lu Li rolled her eyes and said, so the Qilin demon can devour me at any time and free itself from the cage. It will destroy the entire world. Ning Daoqi and Eva were stunned. They suddenly realized the real danger of the entire world. It would take 3 months for the Tree of God to destroy the world. But if Luli was devoured by the Qilin demon and then turned to devour Eva, the world would not last 3 days. Chapter 376. Genius 1 Second. Remember if you want to go. Talk.net, providing you with exciting novels to read. I think there's a way. Eva hesitated. The colorful light ball that represented her was blinking rapidly. Even Ning Daoqi could feel her hesitation. Eva finally made up her mind and said to Lu Li, Master wanted to use the quantum information valve to restrict the Qilin demon's consciousness in your body, but you're too useless. Eva said angrily, You even let the Qilin demon devour more than half of the martial soul that you cultivated with your soul. In the end, the Qilin demon gained the upper hand. Master is a great man. Why would he choose a piece of trash like you to carry the Qilin demon's consciousness? Is Master not satisfied with Eva? Does Master want the Qilin demon to devour Eva to control this world? Eva was so sad that her spherical consciousness stopped glowing. Lily could hear the sadness in the young girl's voice. If this continued, this little girl might sacrifice herself to fuse with the Qilin demon in her body to fulfill the primordial heavenly demon's great cause. He quickly said, I think this should be the heavenly demon emperor's test for us. Otherwise, why would he let me meet you? You're right. Eva regained her composure and continued. Your martial spirit, victorious battle, is one of the strongest martial spirits. Just from its name, I can tell that it will be the strongest to the point of exploding. Even if it's the first awakening, it should have 4 out of the 18 special abilities, such as thoughtless tranquility, formless martial art, divine understanding, sever nature thoughts, innate earth birth. It can definitely suppress the Qilin demon's demonic nature. I don't know what you did, but you let the Qilin demon devour more than half of your martial soul and awakened its ability. Do you know why you could break the one escape when you were fighting with this guy's substitute? Do you know why you could peek into the future 1 second later and deal with it in advance? Eva was dancing. The entire light ball was blinking intensely. Little friend Lu, you've already peeked into my future before you lost that period of time. No wonder Ning Daoqi finally understood. Luli was even more confused. Isn't that my body's automatic reaction? It's the devil Qilin. Bastard. Eva said angrily. The Qilin demon devoured your martial soul battle victory and awakened the formless martial soul and the Tao of utmost sincerity. The path of utmost sincerity can foresee. Although it was not as good as being able to observe the past and the future after mastering the Dharma World Depository Martial Spirit, peeking into all the world lines within 3 seconds and was known as invincible within 3 seconds. Birth and destruction of the world. One thought of the universe's terrifying power. But I can also sense the thoughts of my opponent during battle, and I can even predict the possible actions of my opponent, achieving the effect of prophecy. If I can completely see through a person, I can even toy with him in the palm of my hand during battle. Love, go small, say, Nequit's a very powerful ability. According to my speculation, you should have inherited a portion of the victorious fighting spirit's abilities, right? After all, it grew with your soul as the material. Eva was confused. Do you feel anything special? She looked at Luli expectantly. However, Luli only shook her head blankly. My entire body feels very special right now. Whenever I think about such a terrifying thing flowing through my body, I get goosebumps all over my body. Useless, Eva scolded angrily. I'm starting to suspect that you're fertilizer for Master to cultivate the devil Qilin. He used your body as a petri dish to cultivate the devil Qilin's body, and used your soul as fertilizer for the martial soul to grow. Then, the devil Qilin will eat your martial soul and grow smoothly. Damn it. Why don't I have such fertilizer? I think that's possible. F***CK. It's very possible. Luli said in shock as she recalled the personality that Chun Ong had displayed during the surgery. Damn, fertilizer. Eva's words made Lu Li's status lower and lower. Let's get back to the present. Isn't our goal to stop the devil Qilin from devouring me? Luli said anxiously. We can talk about other things later. Right now, we have to think of a way to control the devil Qilin. There are 3 key points to controlling the devil Qilin. First, you have to strengthen your victorious fighting martial spirit and suppress the growth of the devil Qilin martial spirit. This is to prevent the 3-in-1 system of God, demon, and Buddha from losing balance. After the demon and Buddha become one, they will devour me, the God. Every time your martial spirit becomes stronger, it will suppress the growth potential of the devil Qilin martial spirit. Of course, it will also stimulate its growth. So, we need the second point. Suppress its growth. Use something powerful to suppress the devil Qilin, so that it won't eat away at your existence. The last point is the buffer. To prevent the devil Qilin from going berserk under the suppression, it won't be able to control its greed and fight you. Trust me, if it fights, it won't be the one to die. You have to periodically relieve the burning desire in the devil Qilin's heart. Lu Li hesitated. What is a desire? Don't tell me it's the butt. Get out, Eva roared. It wants to devour and possess. Remember, the devil Qilin is an extremely selfish being. It wants to devour this world at all times. So you just need to let it out and eat a few powerful beings. Eat people. Lu Li's eyes widened. It wants to eat people? Yes. It's so cruel. Eva said with a hint of worry. Even if you do that, we are still missing something. Ning Daoqi's tone was calm, but it was hard to ignore the determination in his eyes. Whether it is the growth of the martial spirit in your body or the thing that suppresses the devil Qilin, we have no clue. Yes, Eva said blankly. If we were in the world of the Protoss, we could just rob their weapons and energy. But this world is very barren. It seems like there is no energy that can suppress the devil Qilin. Unless you can get the energy core of the star carriage that Master is making, but that thing is not finished yet. Star carriage energy core? Lu Li felt that this thing sounded familiar. Suddenly, he had an idea. You're talking about He Sure Bai? He took out a strange jade from his personal space. It was shrouded in light purple energy. It was very mysterious and luxurious. Eva walked around in surprise. Why do you have this thing? The shell of the energy core. Although it hasn't been charged yet, it should be able to function. No, it's already charged to 5%. Why is it in your hands? Chapter 377. By dawn, Lu Li and Ning Daoqi had already left the divine tree space of consciousness and were sailing upstream. Lu Li wiped the heshabi tied to her chest and said with a wry smile, Eva speculated that the incomplete heshabi can only suppress the demon Qilin's demonic nature for a month. And this is because the noble qi of the dragon vein can restrain the demonic nature. So sigh. Ning Daoqi sighed and said with a wry smile, I'll persuade the monks of the Jingzhai and Buddhism to give up the fight for the throne and return the dragon vein qi to the heshabi. They'll make the right choice for the sake of the common people. The power of the righteous path should be used to stop the primordial demon's plot and not indulge in the fight for supremacy. Demon Qilin, divine tree, Eva. We don't know how many terrifying tricks the primordial demon has up his sleeve. He can overturn the whole world at any time. I'll do my best to persuade the righteous path, the evil path, and all the major powers to unite and seal the primordial demon once again. Ning Daoqi looked at the rising sun on the horizon with his beard standing on end. Lu Li wanted to resist fearlessly like him after seeing his spirited expression. But all his lofty aspirations were scattered when he recalled how Chun-Ong had created Eva and the demon Qilin in a joking manner. He could only sigh in the face of such a powerful demon that even a god couldn't control. He gazed into the distance worriedly, feeling lost for the future of himself and the wind chasers. The boat traveled for 2 days. Lu Li and Ning Daoqi were both top experts of this world and shouldn't have needed such a long time. But they had to guard against the demon Qilin's counterattack and help Lu Li familiarize himself with the power of the heshabi. Lu Li's strength wasn't as serious as Chun-Ang's before the refinement. Releasing the demon Qilin to eat people would be fatal. Just as they were about to reach the Tutong Gorge, the boat caught up with a fleet with a flag with the word Song hanging high above. Lu Li saw such a flag from afar and said dumbfoundedly, Isn't that the Song clan's ship? He was quite worried because he didn't know which team was supporting the Song clan. The Wind Chasers were exhausted because of the demon King Chun-Ang's matter and didn't have the energy to investigate the other teams. Therefore, he was a loss. The Song clan's big ship also seemed to have noticed this small boat. Ning Daoqi noticed that a small boat had been lowered from the big ship and was rowing toward them. There was an old man with a silver beard standing on it. He cupped his fists toward the boat from afar and said, Brother Ning, you've come from afar. Why don't you come aboard and reminisce about old times? Ning Daoqi recognized that it was Song Lu. He let out a long laugh, and the small boat under his feet shot out like an arrow to meet Song Lu's small boat. Song Lu brought Ning Daoqi and Lu Li onto the big ship. As soon as he stood on the deck, he saw a red figure leaning on the mast, smiling at Lu Li and Ning Daoqi. "Isn't this Brother Lu? Why aren't you currying favor with Yang Guang? Could it be that you're abandoning the dark side for the light?" Fu Hongyan. Lu Li was both sad and happy when she heard the voice. Fu Hongyan, who was dressed in red, had the charm of a girl. However, she had a strong temperament and the freedom of a man, which made it hard for people to dislike her. Therefore, Ning Daoqi didn't mind when Song Lu apologized to her with his words. On the contrary, he admired her very much. Fu Hongyan turned over on the mast and landed in front of Lu Li barefoot. Ning Daoqi seemed to think of something when he saw her barefoot red dress. He smiled thoughtfully. Although the members of the chosen team are a group of bastards, they're also a group of powerful bastards, not to mention people like Jin Huanzhong from the Universe team. Fu Hongyan's voice was directly transmitted into Lu Li's consciousness. She asked seriously, "I don't know what happened to your team, but it must be something extraordinary for someone like Jin Huanzhong to tell Jiang Taiyin not to take revenge. I went to see the palm that destroyed the chosen team, and I also saw the knife in the consciousness of the other members of the Universe team. Lu Li, I've always admired you. If you didn't insist on maintaining the inheritance of the Windchasers, you would have been a member of our Hong Yin team. But when I saw you this time, I felt very unfamiliar. It's like there's a fierce beast wearing Lu Li's skin standing in front of me. Do you know? My intuition has been warning me that you're very dangerous now, like a hungry monster controlled by evil thoughts. But my reason and emotion believe you, so I came to you like you're asking for an answer. What happened?" Lu Li was silent for a long time. Finally, she sent a message, "Stay away from my team. Don't get close to me. If there's a chance, I don't care what price I have to pay. Run away from this world." Fu Hongyan looked at him deeply, turned around, and left. On the other side, Song Lu was still introducing Ning Daoqi to the other people of the Song clan, but Lu Li just stood there indifferently. After Ning Daoqi met Song Ji and Song Sherdao, he asked curiously, "The meeting at Xutong this time is very important. It's a big change in the Central Plains in 60 years. It's so important that it's unprecedented. Why don't I see Sir Skyblade?" "Elder Ning," Song Sherdao bowed and said, "My father didn't come with us. He went to Sichuan alone to meet an old friend." Ning Daoqi thought of the emotional entanglement between Song Ke and Fan Qinghui that was secretly spread in Jianghu. He nodded with understanding and sighed again. "Unfortunately, I had something to ask the head of the Song clan, but I still missed it. The meeting at Xutong this time is an alliance of all forces against Yangguang, but I know a more urgent secret this time, so I can only obstruct it. I originally wanted to reach a consensus with the head of the Song clan to reduce the possible opposition pressure at the meeting, but it's really unfortunate this time. I hope the head of the Song clan won't stand against me at that time." Ning Daoqi sighed. Song Sherdao, who was beside him, was puzzled. "What's the change that alarmed you?" Ning Daoqi looked at Lu Li, who was reluctant to leave, sighed, and shook his head. "A really terrifying undercurrent is eroding the foundation of the Great Sway. The matter of Yangguang that the righteous forces are worried about is just some waves on the surface of the undercurrent. Compared to the real danger, it's just a minor disease. It's nothing to worry about. I'm only afraid that the righteous forces have their own plans. They only focus on these minor diseases and ignore the real threat. If the righteous forces can't unite, I'm afraid that the people will be in trouble." Ning Daoqi's tone was full of worry and sorrow, which also affected Song Sherdao. He asked in a low voice, "Then what should the righteous forces do to unite? Give up all plans, bear the responsibility for the people, sacrifice everything you have, and fight for the people of the world?" Ning Daoqi said sternly, "If anyone tries to obstruct this, I will resolutely stop them for the sake of the overall situation.